exponentially growing ballistic missile threat to make it virtually impossible to prevent them from obtaining a nuclear weapon. So as you probably saw, they had a tremendous number of missiles, most of which are now being used or destroyed, and very unsuccessfully used, because we have been able, for the most part, to shoot them all down. What incredible technology. The Patriots have been unbelievable, and other things. And the laser technology that we have now is incredible. It's coming out pretty soon. Where literally lasers will do the work of, at a lot less cost, do the work of what the Patriots are doing or what other things are doing. The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what
guys? Good morning.
Steve and Jared and Pete
I'm
and
on
others
way
were telling
earlier
me,
than I
Marco,
usually
so
go
involved,
on.
That I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would.
I saw
if
a
we
bunch
didn't
of
do
you
this
waiting on Rumble.
at the time we did it. I think
I
they
hate
had
to
in
see
mind to
y'all
attack
waiting
us.
for nothing,
And
so I
if
figured
you
I'd
notice,
just
they
pop
did something which was very foolish, very stupid, I would say.
I'm going to be in and out until actual market opening, and I'll just bounce around between these news sources just for shits and giggles. But I'll be in and out until about 9-ish.
In fact, the neighbors came onto our side and started attacking them, and actually quite successfully. If you look at Saudi Arabia, you look at UAE, Qatar, and others. But they were strong and they were smart, but they got attacked. Nobody, when I first heard it, I said, no, somebody made a mistake. There was no mistake. UAE had over 1,000 missiles shot at it, knocked them almost all down. On the very first day I came down the escalator in 2015, I said, quote, I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And all I'm doing is keeping my promise. Think of that. That was in 2015. I said it. It was a threat then and a much bigger threat now, but no longer a threat, not for a long time anyway. We want to keep it that way. As we continue Operation Epic Fury, we're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. I will take out those targets that were easy and that I mentioned just before. We'll take them out so quickly, they'll never be able to recover, ever. If they want to play that game, they better not play that game. In the long run, oil supplies will be dramatically more secure without the threat of Iranian ships, drones, missiles, nuclear menace, or anything. So the straight...
To the one person watching on YouTube, thanks for joining. I'm going to be in and out. I just started earlier because I just thought I would, because there's a lot of people watching. So, and I didn't want to make everybody wait. But I'm going to be all over the place with TradingView, pulling up all kinds of stuff, just getting everything ready for around closer to market opening. And we're going to leave the news running. If anybody wants me to switch screens from what you see on here or pull something else up, by all means, drop it in the chat.
Vessels, we're putting an end to all of this threat once and for all, and the result will be lower oil prices, oil and gas prices for American families. We've done that. We've done it. We brought it very low. This was just an excursion into something that had to be done. We're getting very close to finishing that, too. In the meantime, during this brief disruption, the United States is offering political risk insurance to any tankers operating in the Gulf. So we're putting up risk insurance. We'll perhaps go alongside of them for protection. We don't think it'll be necessary. If it is, and if they do anything, the price will be incalculable. It will be so great that they will have wished they never did it, because you have to keep the straits flowing. With all of that, it affects other countries much more than it does the United States. It doesn't really affect us. We have so much oil. We have tremendous oil and gas, much more than we need. We have Venezuela now as our new partner, great partner. They've worked out so wonderful. We're working with the administration, the president, and it's a massive source of oil, gas, everything. But we're in a very good position, but very unfair to other parts of the world, like China as an example. I mean, we're doing this for the other parts of the world, including countries like China. They get a lot of their oil through the straits. So we're doing this. We have a very good relationship with President Xi in China. I'm going there in a short period of time, and we're protecting the world from what these lunatics are trying to do, and very successfully, I might add. We're also waiving certain oil-related sanctions to reduce prices. So we have sanctions on some countries. We're going to take those sanctions off till this straightens out. Then who knows, maybe we won't have to put them on. There'll be so much peace. But when the time comes, the U.S. Navy and its partners will escort tankers through the strait if needed. I hope it's not going to be needed, but if it's needed, we'll escort them right through.
We're listening in here to President Trump. These were some of the comments that he made just yesterday in Doral, Florida. He gave an update on Operation Epic Fury, as he also says he's thinking that a lot of those U.S. military operations in the region will be ending pretty soon. We do have to step away for a brief commercial break here at Live Now from Fox, but we'll continue with more of the day's top stories. Stay with us.
Open up Pi Bank savings with a great 4.6% APY at PieBank.com.
RentHop has more NYC rental listings than any other site, sourced directly from landlords.
Whether you're a seasoned off-roader or getting your vehicle trail ready, Harbor Freight offers rugged winches, lights, off-road jacks, and accessories for every need, and quality tools and equipment built to perform. Harbor Freight, your off-road destination.
Going to switch over to one of the people that are actually talking, Trump Bloomberg.
Extended could be a negative factor for the Japanese growth outlook.
Shin, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for dropping by.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Shin Kadota there of Barclays, weighing in on the latest in Japan, fixed income and global markets. That's a massive buffer right there, but it's come at a pretty difficult time for a new Prime Minister who's got a vision of where she wants to take things.
A little bit more stimulus, a little bit greater degree of fighting disinflation rather than concerned about inflation. The reason why this is so fascinating is because where the 30-year Japanese bond yield goes, so too goes the global bond market. That is the belief. So to the degree that they have a different policy than, say, the ECB in terms of their target, it has ramifications for the entire world.
As you suggested, there was a moment where we couldn't even really call it a market.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't much of a market. You need someone to buy and sell, you know, to have a market.
Yeah,
and there wasn't much of one for quite a while.
Yeah, it was controlled pretty heavily. And there still is the glut of debt. And that's a real question here. And that's clearly what this administration is dealing with.
Crude this morning down 7%, about 92 on Brent. Up next, we'll catch up with Dan Green, House of Solace, Mark Short, the former Chief of Staff to the former Vice President Mike Pence, David Tinsley of Bank of America, Kathy Jones of Charles Schwab.
Tune in to Bloomberg Business Week Daily.
We got to talk crypto.
From the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead.
What's the conversation around your company?
Bringing you insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy.
Planning very big things.
A new level of premium.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
The floodgates of innovation are going to open up.
You can't fake passion. You either are or you aren't.
Bloomberg Business Week Daily, only on Bloomberg.
When I visited Fernandez at IMAX's headquarters outside Toronto, we went to the facility where IMAX designs and maintains its cameras. The latest next-gen equipment was out with directors on Filmed for...
If you are just joining, it is still very early. I'm up for market stream. I'm going to be on here in and out until the market actually opens. But until the market gets closer to like maybe 9 o'clock, I'm going to be in and off, on and off camera. I'm still here, so if you've got any ticker symbols you want me to pull up, all I'm doing in the meantime is letting some news play and getting my charts ready for market open. So by all means, if you want me to pull up a chart, drop it in the chat and I'll be happy to. But like I said, I'm just getting everything ready for market opening. It looks like Trump is talking.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Do you approve of Iran's new supreme leader? And secondly, can you tell us more about your call with Russian President Vladimir Putin today?
Yes.
What did you discuss?
Yes, I had a very good call with President Putin. We had a lot of people on the line from our side, from his side. We were talking about Ukraine, which is just a never-ending fight. And look, there's tremendous hatred between President Putin and President Zelensky. They can't seem to get it together. But I think it was a positive call on that subject. And we obviously talked then about the Middle East. And he wants to be helpful. I said, you could be more helpful by getting the Ukraine-Russia war over with. That would be more helpful. But we had a very good talk, and he wants to be very constructive. Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very
to...
soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are 2 levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But 2 levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. So it's obviously been very, very powerful, very effective.
To Cuba, you said that Cuba wants to make a deal.
Yes.
What would the United States get in return for that, and why should Americans trust Marco Rubio to negotiate it?
Well, Marco Rubio is doing a great job. I think he's going to go down as the greatest Secretary of State in history. Look at what we've done as a presidency. Look at what we've done as an administration.
Agreed.
They trust Marco, and so do the American people trust. He's been successful no matter where he's been. He also speaks the language, which is always nice and always helpful. But he's dealing, and it may be a friendly takeover. It may not be a friendly takeover. It wouldn't matter, because they're down to, as they say, fumes. They have no energy. They have no money. They're in deep trouble on a humanitarian basis. And we don't want to see that, but they were very, very bad to a lot of people, as you know, and a lot of people living on the Cuban-American vote, which I got at record levels. Very important. Those people are very important to me. I know what they went through. They went through hell. Some of them have gone on to be some of the most successful people in the country. Cuban-American business people, some of them are like the most successful in the country. And a lot of them are friends of mine, because I've been fighting this battle with them for a long time. The Castro regime was brutal, but they lived off Venezuela. Now they don't live off Venezuela. Sends them no energy, no fuel, no oil, no money, no nothing. They lived without Venezuela. They couldn't have made it. And we cut them off from everything else. So, yeah, they're going to make either a deal, or we'll do it just as easy anyway. Yeah. Please, go ahead.
And a Tomahawk missile likely destroyed that Iranian girls' school. So will the U.S. accept any responsibility?
Well, I
for
haven't
that strike?
seen it. And I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries. You know that. And whether it's Iran, who also has some Tomahawks, they wish they had more. But whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic. It's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated.
I'm going to read something to you guys regarding this school, because all over social media, if you notice, people are blaming America. And it was looking pretty bad, in my opinion. I take in all sorts of news just because they all exaggerate a little bit, and they all have an agenda. So as I feel it's best to absorb as much as possible, once you do that and just find the common denominators and leave out the spins, I did see a little bit that suggested that we actually did hit that school. And it really, really, really hurt me, because that's just not in our wheelhouse. It's in Iran's wheelhouse, especially to do it and blame it on somebody. So I found this on Facebook, which, by the way, is full of complete lies and BS. but I wanted to read you this. This guy, the guy's name is Matt Tardio at AngerTab. He wrote, Iran's school strike lie exposed. Not a U.S. Tomahawk, but their own misfired missile. Iran claims a U.S. Tomahawk cruise missile slammed into a girls' school in southern Iran, killing around 165 people, mostly children, in an unprovoked attack. The regime pushes this narrative hard, backed by state media videos and quick outrage from global outlets. Veteran analyst Matt Tardio crushes that story with hard evidence from video footage of the incoming munition. Key facts from his breakdown. The wing placement. AI-enhanced analysis shows the wings sit 40 to 45% down the missile body. Tomahawk wings are at 49 to 50% down the missile body. This matches Iran's own KH-55 derivative land attack cruise missile, a Soviet design they copied and modified. Then there's the attack angle. The munition dives at a steep 70 degrees in the final phase, the absolute maximum for a Tomahawk. Tomahawks normally fly low, 50 to 100 meter altitude, and they hit at shallower 20 to 45 degree angles to dodge defenses and radars. A 70-degree plunge would require climbing high, far out, exposing it to interception, suicide on day one of strikes. The conclusion? Wing position alone rules out a Tomahawk. The extreme dive fits a jammed Iranian KH-55 losing guidance and control. U.S. and Israeli forces actively jam Iranian GPS and airspace, exactly the kind of disruption that would send their own missiles spiral down uncontrollably. This lines up with President Trump's March 7th statement, which he said, "No, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran." The regime buries military assets in civilian sites, then screams victim when things go wrong. Classic propaganda from radical Islamists who lie as policy. So I thought that was a good read-up. I found it made a lot of sense. So, yeah.
Of whether or not your Republican colleagues agree with the policy, it's about changing the process. In other words, getting rid of the filibuster to get there.
So in order to get it, you're going to need Democrat votes. And what we're saying is the Save America, not the SAVE Act, which nobody knew what it was, the Save America Act. The Save America Act. And that's voter ID. We want voter ID. When a voter, we want to be able to see a picture of the voter. We want to be able to see that the voter is legitimate. We want, very importantly, confirmation that this voter is a citizen of the United States of America.
Yeah, duh.
And we want no mail-in ballot scams. So we have exceptions for the military, for sick, for disabled, and for people that are away, business trips or whatever.
So they can
Even
still
vacations
vote.
will be very liberal in that. We've added two things to it: no men in women's sports and no transgender mutilization of our children. We don't want our it's mutilization of our children.
It's mutilation, but okay, I get what you're saying.
So we added those two things. That's the 5 points. We have 5 very good points. It polls at 86% with Democrats. Think of that. The overall vote is 86%. With Republicans, it's 98%. And the only one opposed to it is a Democrat leadership because they cheat. They want to cheat. So we added those 2 points. We're going for the goal. And we're going to have to fight like hell.
This is what you get to enjoy when you're here.
Certain things will happen. Certain things will take place. I'm here to do a great job for the country. But we don't have a country if we're going to have elections that are so corrupt and so dishonest like we've witnessed over the last period of time. You know, as an example, virtually nobody has nobody has a system of mail-in ballots like we have. No other country in the world. France went away from it. They all went, you know why? Because it's corrupt. And Jimmy Carter, when he had a commission, frankly, I think it's probably the best thing Jimmy Carter did. He said, you can't have mail-in voting because it's inherently dishonest. And it's turned out to be totally dishonest, so we're going to fight for it. Yeah.
Iran activated any sleeper cells inside the U.S.? There's reports that they have pressed that trigger button to activate those cells, at least abroad.
Well, they've been trying for a long time. We've been very much on top of it. One of the things we have to do is get the Democrats to stop the Democrat shutdown, because, as you know, the apparatus that looks into that, Schumer and the Democrats have shut it down, which tells you they probably hate our country a lot. But the Democrats have to open that up. But we've got very, very good intelligence into that. We know a lot of different things that have happened that have been very bad. A lot of them came in during the Biden open border period, but we have them under, we've got them, we're watching every single one of them. Yeah, we know a lot about them. The biggest problem we have is the Democrat shutdown. We know a lot about them, but the shutdown doesn't allow us to do what we have to do.
Have to take him out? Does he have a target on his back?
You mean the new supreme leader? You mean the son?
How can there be an Iran?
Well,
with
I don't want to say that, but you know, I was disappointed because we think it's going to lead to just more of the same problem for the country. So I was disappointed to see their choice.
Thank you, sir. You've said you have someone in mind to be the new Iranian leadership, if not the Ayatollah's son. What are you looking for in that person? Are you looking at someone internal, given that you just said that their leadership has been decimated?
I like the
and
idea
wiped
of, internal and eternal, come to think of it. But I like the idea of internal because it works well. I mean, I think we've proven that so far in Venezuela. We have a woman, Delcy, who has been, president of the country, very respected, she's doing a great job. And it's, no disruption.
Dude, looks like we're setting up for
Iraq.
Another little run in Bitcoin.
Fired. The military got fired. The police got fired. The politicians got fired. There was nobody. And you know what they turned into? ISIS. And we don't want that. We don't want that.
Bitcoin must stay above 70,000 consistently for about a week or two. And if it can do that, it could be very good news for Bitcoin. I've got a hell of a bag. How about you? To anybody just joining us, I'm going to be in and out until market opening. I don't normally get on this early. I usually start this about 8:30. But I saw you lovely people waiting, and I just felt so terrible. So I figured I'd just come on, and y'all can watch news with me while I play with charts and get everything ready for market opening. Anybody have any suggestions for me to pull something up? By all means, drop it in the chat. If you see something on the screen you'd rather me switch to, the audio, you just say so. It's completely up to y'all. I'm just over here working. I'll be in and out too.
Great for Venezuela, and it's great for the United States. Yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. President, you just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was
They
told
can't
is
say.
under investigation. But tomahawks are
That's because
used by
Trump has the
others,
final
as you know.
say.
Numerous other
He
nations
can
have tomahawks.
speculate.
They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report. Yeah, please.
You said earlier that we've already won in many ways, but we haven't won enough. What do you consider enough? What's your baseline?
Where they're not going to be starting the following day to develop a nuclear weapon. Where they'll look at that man and some other people from the administration and say, all right, we're not going to do it. They were not willing to say that. And when Steve called up and he said that to me, I said, well, here we go. Let's do it the hard way. But the hard way, I think, is probably the easy way. When basically I can see that they will no longer have any capacity whatsoever for a very long period of time of developing weaponry that could be used against the United States, Israel, or any of our allies. We have great allies in the Middle East, great countries that are allies. And they were staying out of it until they got hit. Someday they'll have to do a story. Why did he do that? Why did they do that? But they were going to hit them. If I didn't hit them first, they were going to hit our allies first. I believe, upon information and belief, but look at the number of missiles they were able to buy and make over the last 6 months. And those missiles were aimed at various countries. And when you look at over 1,000 missiles shot at like UAE, they were looking to take over the Middle East. We got there first. We're lucky. I'll tell you what, the Middle East and those countries, very rich countries, are very lucky that I was president instead of somebody else.
Points of disagreement between yourself and your vice president when it comes to U.S. action in Iran?
I don't think so, no. No, we get along very well on this. He was, I would say, philosophically a little bit different than me. I think he was maybe less enthusiastic about going, but he was quite enthusiastic. But I felt it was something we had to do. I didn't feel we had a choice. If we didn't do it, they would have done it to us. I felt, based on the negotiations that were being had by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and Marco and Pete and everybody was involved, I felt that they were going to.
You know what I find funny? This map right here, as you can see, this is the global inflation map. All right. The darker the color, the lower the inflation rate. And as it goes up, we are right here, 0 to 3%. These places that are the absolute lowest, yeah, they likely don't have a very good economy at all. However, what's funny is Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand. I am currently waiting on my disability pay. I've got just the I'm done with everything, waiting on a hearing. And when that happens, look at their inflation. Negative 0.88%. Compare that to the United States, 2.5%. Now, I don't know if anybody here has ever been to Thailand, but you can literally get 5 to 7 or 8 times the value out of the money that you spend at most places. If you go to a 7-Eleven in Thailand, what do you get from a 7-Eleven for $5 here in America? Big bag of chips is usually more than $5, usually $5.99. Damn beef jerky, it costs you $10 a bag or more. A pack of candy now is pushing $2. So you can get a couple of things, right? Dude, it's 7-Eleven in Thailand. You can get more than you can carry for $5. 3 or 4 bags of chips, not the really big bags, but you know, not the tiny ones either. 2 sodas, which now here are over $2 a piece. So in here you could get just 2 sodas and maybe a small little candy for $5. Nah, bro. Thailand, you get 3 or 4 candies, 4 or 5 bags of chips, 2 drinks, and it's right at about $5, maybe 6. The only thing that costs relatively the same around the world is gas and cigarettes, usually. But yeah, Vietnam has the most devalued currency in the world. I currently have, I think I have like 182,000 dong. Look it up and see how much it is. It's like 30 or 40 bucks. But you can get even more at Vietnam. You got to worry a bit more about the corrupt police out there, because, you know, they always want bribes. But I am moving to Thailand as soon as my disability case goes through. And in case you're wondering, yes, you can live abroad and receive disability. That's the dream, baby. I sure would love to run outside and have a smoke, but I've got like 4 cigarettes left. And I'm waiting on some money to clear from from the losses yesterday I suffered from the oil futures. I was up $250 off of a $92 investment. But now look, right here, bang, we're all the way down, right down to exactly what I started with. Oh, I was heated yesterday, man. As soon as I got offline, if I hadn't got offline, I probably would have punched my laptop. Because they said they weren't going to release those oil reserves. They're like, not right now. Probably because it was sitting right at $100 a barrel. As soon as they did that, you would have expected it to go back up. But no, as you can see, it's below 90 now. Man, yesterday was a wild, confusing ride for oil. So I got out of it so I wouldn't lose my initial investment. So it was a fun ride, but I didn't win a damn thing. I was up $250. Ain't that some shit? That's literally all the money I've got in the world right now, because I'm waiting on some other money and I don't know when it's coming. So I gotta go to the store. Like that's supposed to clear around 10 a.m. and I gotta go to the store and get some smokes. I got like 4 left. I need to quit. Oh, I need to quit. I should quit. But things elsewhere are just, so stressful. Fuck that. I need my smokes. I'm going to put you back with some noose. And I'm going to go smoke one of those 4 cigarettes I got left, I think. Everything's pretty cooled off at the moment. Since the stock heat map isn't doing anything. Where are we at? Yeah, crypto heat map. In the last hour, it's all looking pretty flat. The dollar is doing worse than it was yesterday. All right, there's the stock heat map. Post-market change was flat. Actually, that data is probably not coming through because we're not in post-market. I got pre-market pull up. I think pre-market doesn't open until 8:30, right? Let's see what these people are saying.
From last week, and it is not expected to get better anytime soon. Michigan currently ranks about 9th in the nation in terms of the prices at the pump. And the price of crude oil, as you just mentioned, it is reaching record levels since 2022. All of this, of course, connected to the conflict in the Middle East. Take a listen to what drivers here in Michigan are saying.
Yeah, this has to be pre-recorded.
Kind of crazy, but if it's already paid for, why are they going up on it? That's
because they got to hedge their bets more.
Fortunately, I don't have to drive very often, so it doesn't hurt me.
Man, don't talk to the people. They always talk to idiots. People are stupid. Everybody's stupid. Nobody has a full scope of what's going on. Don't ask the average person. They're not factoring in things they should be factoring in. Ask people like you and me.
Short term is that affordability remains the #1 issue for Americans. And, I think that even if best case scenario oil prices, now are in the $80 to $90 range a barrel, that's still a 33% premium over what they were. That's not going to help with the affordability issue heading into the midterms in November.
So what do you think is the most feasible counteraction to that by the president heading into the midterms?
I think the most feasible is to continue to explain why this is a necessary action, why for 47 years Iran has been at war with the West, why they've going back to funding the Hamas and the Hezbollah and the Houthis, why they've killed Americans and Westerners so long, why we did this. I think that's what he can do best. As far as triggers, I think that one thing that would be helpful is if you relieve.
I'm pretty sure everybody already knows that.
Inside the administration, because
and I see people on the left who don't care about all that.
That is sacrosanct. They don't want to see that. I think it's disappointing to see actually providing relief for Russian oil at this point. I think. That,
granted, civilians are suffering because of this war. I will grant that.
We've been providing them drones in the war in Ukraine, and our recourse to this is to actually relax.
But war is hell. These things happen, unfortunately. Am I for that? Absolutely not. Am I for the liberation of the women of Iran? Absolutely. Google pictures of Iran from the 70s. Dude, their society looked almost just like ours at the time. Women had good style. It was 70s-ish type style. I mean, just style-wise, they were great. They were looking great. And then this Islamic theocratic BS popped up and took over and throwing bed sheets over the women and beating them. And it's horrible. So Iran, this is a long time coming. I feel for the people suffering, but, by and large, they're happy to see the Ayatollah unalived. As am I. He was a piece of human garbage that deserved exactly what happened to him, and hopefully they get his son too, because then they'll start to learn, won't they? That Islamic theocratic BS can GTFO.
Go higher than that. For now, reporting in Lake Mary, Amanda Ruiz, Fox 35 News.
All right, Amanda, thanks so much for joining us here, giving us some perspectives as to how some of those prices are looking there in Florida. You take care. We are continuing, though, to track all of those impacts regarding the war in the Middle East. You just heard from our team in Detroit, also our team in Orlando. And I want to bring us back out to the social media post courtesy of Fox Business that I had showcased to you as we were turning to some of those live reports. So again, Fox Business saying that crude oil prices exceed $100 a barrel as war in Iran disrupts production shipping. Want to take us back out live to some of the images that we continue to have over in the Middle East. So back out here over to Beirut in Lebanon as we follow some more of these impacts here having to do with the war, and a lot of those impacts not just affecting oil costs, but also having some effects on the economy as a whole. Now,
yeah. I'm going to put on Bloomberg, I think. See what they're saying.
And then this, very quickly, the message gets murky. Now, if you come out the other side with more production, maybe you've got a better story to tell. But the runway, we've talked about the amount of time until the midterms. That runway is getting shorter and shorter as the months pass by. Up next on the program, David Tinsley of Bank of America Institute as the conflict in Iran hits the U.S. consumer.
So, I really love people's opinions on on something I forgot about just like that, because I'm not fully awake and need more coffee and a smoke. Yeah, if I think of it, I'll come back to it. Let's see what Yahoo is saying. I don't think it's much.
Stay disciplined and stay in touch. Take good care.
Yeah, that's what I say to you guys. Stay in touch.
So a lot to keep up with here in terms of prices. We'll make sure to bring you all of those developments and new details that we get here at Live Now from Fox. At the same time, something else that we are tracking very closely is the fact that later on today, we are expecting an update from Pentagon officials on Operation Epic Fury. And in fact, we do have a live image inside of that venue. The podium is already set up here. You could see two podiums, so it might be similar to some of the updates that we had been getting throughout the last week or so. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is going to be joined by General Dan Kane. Those remarks starting at 8 a.m. Eastern time.
That's in my merch store. That's my design.
Catch them live.
I'll be back. We're going to have a smoke.
With no commercial breaks, because we do want to make sure that we bring you all of these new details, especially as President Trump continues to say that this war and more specifically military operations involving U.S. troops going to be scaled down, and they're going to be ending very soon. Obviously, all of that having a wide-ranging impact around the globe, so we don't want to miss a moment of this update. If you're planning your day with us, that is 8 a.m. Eastern Time, and we will have it here for you at Live Now from Fox. We are going to go ahead and step away for a brief commercial break, but we continue to track more of the top stories from this week, and more specifically throughout this Tuesday, when we come back.
When you book with Corporate Traveler, you get unbeatable value every time. So every trip feels smooth and profits surge. Market share triples and you buy a private island. Well, maybe not an island. Corporate Traveler, the booking is just the start.
They put the plate down like it's a piece of art. They make me feel that way.
We've been a Web Plus member for years now. It's a no-brainer for us. I know that we save quite a bit on shipping by being a Web Plus member. We instantly saw the value. With multiple shops and even plenty of space at our headquarters, we still use Web Plus instead of central ordering and shipping everything out our own. To have a driver and a truck go around for that much, for the amount of supplies that we need, just doesn't make sense when you compare it to Web Plus.
Thanks for staying with us here at Live Now from Fox as we continue to track more of the day's top stories. And just to showcase one more time here, it's the live images that we just got into our newsroom. As later on today, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, we are going to be expecting an update from the Pentagon regarding Operation Epic Fury. At the same time, though, many other stories that we are following closely, and this next one does bring us back out to New York City. Staying in the U.S., though, as you know, just yesterday and over the weekend, really, we brought to you the breaking news of some chaos happening at a protest over in New York City. Now, the Associated Press saying this, that two men who brought explosives to a far-right protest outside New York City's mayor's mansion said they were inspired by the Islamic State extremist group, that's according to a court complaint. Now, both of those suspects being held without bail after a court appearance on Monday on charges that include attempting to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization and using a weapon of mass destruction. Their lawyers did not argue for bail, but could do so later. Yesterday, we showcased a press conference that featured New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Again, this all happening just outside of his home there. We also heard from NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, and we know that the FBI and federal agencies are following this very closely and investigating possibly any kind of national security threat here in the U.S., especially as the war in the Middle East does continue. Joining us now to talk about this a little bit more is going to be Stefano Rittendale. He is the Chief Intelligence Officer at Artorias. Stefano, good to see you.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So you're following this closely. And in fact, we had you on when just a week ago, I believe it was over in Austin, Texas. We had somewhat of a similar situation in which you have this kind of chaotic attack, possibly tied to some extremist groups. But let's stay in New York City for this specific conversation. With investigators, they're saying that the suspects claimed inspiration from the extremist group of the Islamic State. Now, when individuals in the U.S. act on these sort of ideals, what kind of intelligence is needed to gather here in order to identify if these individuals are acting alone and not with a group and specific ties there?
So I think that's a great question. I think this is one of the hard aspects when we're doing kind of the law enforcement investigation and we're trying to look into how did somebody decide to kind of do an attack motivated by a foreign terrorist organization. So in this specific one, obviously the persons have identified that they've been radicalized by the Islamic State. So what I think key intelligence aspects in law enforcement, either after the attack happens or before, only the real key way that we can see this, if there's any real ability of them having direct communications with a known terrorist, specifically located outside of the United States. And actually, this is one of the main arguments why the FISA court specifically, they make this argument to kind of continue the FISA authorities, which is a very controversial law in the United States that kind of gets a lot of political pushbacks because of this concerns of civil liberties in the United States and government overreach. But one of the key aspects of it is to try to leverage FISA courts to monitor the communications of foreign terrorists and their abilities then to reach into the United States and have communications with American citizens. And I think this specific case, what the investigators are going to look at as the two individuals you're showing now is, was this a case where there were in active communications with known Islamic State operatives overseas that then assisted them in directing the attacks and how to build the explosives, etc.? Or was this a scenario where these two individuals were simply self-radicalized because they, went into Islamic State propaganda channels, they went to their Telegram channels, their Signal channels, managed to get radicalized on their own, use Islamic State already public record in how to build explosive devices, and then really make this a really homegrown terrorist attack that they just received inspiration from the Islamic State. And I think that's the key aspect we'll probably find out during this court proceedings that will start soon.
And the key thing about this is that obviously we are tracking very closely this ongoing war there in the Middle East. Also on the screen, we just have some images of that entire scenario, kind of the police response, also a vehicle that was impounded there. But staying with some of this, these broader implications, if you will. Now, we are seeing here that while the situation in the Middle East plays out, I want to ask you, Stefano, in recent years, have intelligence agencies seen more cases of individuals in the U.S. claiming inspiration from foreign terrorist groups rather than being directly connected with them? And also, when we look at kind of the times when we see these certain situations play out, is there something that would give us more of a sense that a situation like this could have happened specifically because we are watching these developments in the Middle East?
Right. So I think one of the key strengths, really, if you're analyzing kind of foreign terrorist organization from an intelligence perspective, the main threat from us and kind of one of the strengths that the Islamic State had, it was their ability to really do exactly what you said, was that this self-radicalization in homegrown terrorists that really required minimal communications or no communications at all. And that's something that the Islamic State really pushed a lot of the people around the world for the past decade to just don't wait on us, don't wait for communication, just do the attacks yourselves. And we'll give you broad-based materials for you to leverage if you want to make it more sophisticated. But they really encourage their terrorists and people that they radicalized in the West to just simply get a vehicle and do these famous ramming attacks. And I think that's the main problem what intelligence agency and law enforcement have been trying to combat, not only in the United States, but in Europe. And I think that's the main problem. When we're analyzing the current situation in the Middle East, I mean, this is an interesting dynamic where these two individuals were radicalized by the Islamic State, or they claim to have been radicalized by the Islamic State. But the problem is, and the interesting aspect, obviously, the Islamic State is also an enemy of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and Iran has fought the Islamic State specifically during the operations in Iraq and Syria while the United States was there as well. And so, this is a very interesting development, that it could be that these individuals, if they were self-radicalized, just saw a moment of opportunity and a soft target to continue to attack. If, let's say, they were foreign inspired and in a way directed by some elements or some cells that were loyal to the Islamic State overseas, this could be an opportunity that the Islamic State is trying to leverage to maybe increase domestic tensions in the United States through these attacks. This specific attack targeted a political rally, people identified, from the far right or the right. And an attack like this, the Islamic State could look at it as a way to say, we can create mass chaos and more domestic problems in the United States and maybe encourage reprisal attacks. And at the end of the day, that fits the broader goal, which is what the Islamic State wants. And so this could be be a case where the Islamic State, who's an enemy of the United States and has conducted attacks against Iran, just sees a target of opportunity to create radicalization in the U.S. through these attacks, specifically targeting political organizations or people involved in protests.
That brings me to my next question here, because we've heard from the Trump administration, also members of the Department of War. I mean, they're following any kind of national security threat here in the U.S. very closely. When we listen into some of the comments that they make and also some of the reports that are coming out, I keep seeing the term sleeper cells. Could you explain to our viewers what sleeper cells are and how they could be identified?
Right. So the sleeper cells, we got this report really interesting from that indicated that maybe Iran, they're sending signals and codes that maybe activate sleeper cells. And what basically sleeper cells are members that are, let's just view them as deep cover, that work for a hostile nation, in this intent, Iran, that have been sent into the United States. And for all intents and purposes, when you look at them and you analyze them, they appear to be as American as anybody else. We've seen the Russians really leverage this as well in a lot of espionage cases. And then they're involved to do operations at the behest of the hostile nation, in this case, Iran. But when you look at them, they have a lot of cover. They're very integrated into the American culture and society. And a lot of times they just seem like regular Americans. And so the concern, obviously, here is that with this reporting that maybe Iran has activated these sleeper cells in the United States, either Iran or through their proxies, let's say Hezbollah, for example, who's also really known to kind of leverage and send terrorists overseas under deep cover to then activate for a foreign terrorist attack, might have been activated and been used to maybe conduct terrorist attacks in the United States as retaliation for the operations we're seeing inside of Iran right now by the U.S. and Israel. What we're trying to figure out also is we have to be very cognizant that it's not only in the United States. Iran and their proxies do have an international presence. They have done terrorist attacks all the way from like Argentina, Thailand, Romania, to name a few. And so this broad-based international reach is a problem for the intelligence community and law enforcement around the world, because it's hard to track every single sleeper cell that may exist, not only in the United States, but the world at large.
We're also bringing up these images again coming up at 8 a.m. Eastern time. We are expecting an update courtesy of the Pentagon on Operation Epic Fury. Going back to the latest regarding any potential national security threat here in the U.S. amid this ongoing war. Stefano, after this incident there happened in New York City, it happened on Sunday. We know several agencies working together right now to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But can you walk us through the process that intelligence agencies take now after an incident like that happened, which thankfully none of those explosives were detonated, but obviously now it's going to be a heightened concern?
Right. So one of the key aspects that the investigators would look at is to see exactly to your point, Carol. Like, was this specifically, were these individuals specifically talking to Islamic State operatives overseas, and did they have any assistance? That's probably one of the key aspects they're interested in looking at, because if they were, they would be able to identify the ways that those communications were happening, what platforms and systems they were communicating, and then leverage intelligence agencies in the United States, such as, let's say, the NSA, to try to see if we can then have a better insight of what the Islamic State operatives are currently doing that radicalize these two individuals, and see if they're radicalizing other individuals, and seeing if we can thwart any terrorist attacks that might be in the works currently. And I think that's one of the key aspects. If these individuals were lone wolves, as we say, and they self-radicalize, that's a kind of a problem in and of itself, because it again highlights a key aspect that's really hard to discover. Is if somebody wants to commit a terrorist attack with their own motives, it's hard to kind of find them relying on social media. But one of the ways that you can do it is, can you find these individuals where they in any messaging chats or messaging groups that encourage radicalization, and then leveraging those chats to kind of pass it on to law enforcement to see if there are any other individuals who kind of maybe fall into this network of just radicalization on their own, to see if you can thwart any other potential terrorist attacks that might happen in the United States or overseas. So those are the key aspects that I think investigators are going to look at. How were these individuals specifically radicalized? Were they talking to specific operatives overseas that were helping direct them? And if not, or if they were, the other area is, were they part of a larger, just a group of supporters and others, or were they kind of isolated to themselves, and this attack happened in that aspect? So I think that's where investigators are looking at, and hopefully if any information they get from them can be passed on to intelligence agencies, and other plans and terrorist attacks might be thwarted.
Now, obviously, trying to prevent certain attacks like this does continue to be the main priority. It's unfortunate that it got so close, at least, to potentially a lot of people being hurt. But, Stefano, before I let you go, as viewers watch cases like this one in particular unfold, hopefully we don't have another one again. But if we do continue to track more of these national security threats here and these new investigations that the FBI are going to take on due to possible extremism or potential terror plots, what do you think that they should keep in mind, in particular when it comes to how intelligence agencies are working behind the scenes?
Right. So I think there's various aspects to cover. One, the problem we're going to run into right now in social media, there is a lot of attempts to, radicalize individuals in the West against the United States, against Israel, and against, our European allies as well, and to use the conflict as a way to do radicalization and attacks against the U.S. And so that's always going to be a concern. We do know Iran specifically is leveraging misinformation, disinformation, and their own bots in social media to amp radicalization and target American citizens in that aspect. So that's always going to be a concern. Obviously, that's why we've seen law enforcement around the world shortly after this war started announce that they're going to increase their presence in security patrols, specifically in areas of soft targets and places of warships, because those are likely targets if an attack were to be deemed to occur. And so we're already seeing a lot of preventative measures that law enforcement agencies are taking right now, specifically in large cities, to try to prevent that. From an intelligence perspective, I think the key aspect that they're looking into, just as the report highlighted, is do we have any concrete intelligence leads that indicate that Iran has identified specific cells that have been activated, and maybe have they already pushed any plots that they want or terrorist attacks to occur at the current time. And the intelligence agencies, the NSA, the CIA, the FBI as our law enforcement, they are 24/7 going to be monitoring any active threat reporting that comes from the Middle East, that comes from Iran, directed against the United States, and see if they can mitigate it or remove it. So right now, that's really the priority from both the foreign side and the domestic side to keep Americans safe.
Stefano Rittendale, the Chief Intelligence Officer at Artorias. We certainly appreciate your time here at Live Now from Fox as we are tracking any potential national security threat here amid this conflict in the Middle East. We'll be in touch. We'll check in soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. We do want to step away for a brief commercial break here at Live Now from Fox. Throughout that conversation, though, I have been periodically putting up the live images that we do have coming into our newsroom. As coming up in about 15 minutes or so, 8 a.m. Eastern time, we are expecting an update from Pentagon officials here on Operation Epic Fury. So you saw there just moments ago, it appeared to be some sort of mic check as we wait for more of these officials to walk into the actual room here. It comes as President Trump does continue to say that the war against Iran, the operations concerning U.S. military members should be over soon. We'll be right back.
RentHop has more NYC rental listings than any other site, sourced directly from landlords.
Learn more about Celebrity Cruises' latest offers.
I took both college admission tests, and the SAT scoring felt tricky, but the ACT scoring felt more transparent. The ACT is simple. They translate the percent of questions you get right into a score, from 1 to 36. Register for the upcoming ACT today.
Taking us back out live to these images that we are going to be carrying here, an event and an update, I should say, later on today, coming up in just about 10 minutes from now, 13 minutes to be exact, 8 a.m. Eastern time, the Pentagon will be providing an update on the war in Iran, an update on Operation Epic Fury. We're expecting to hear from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, also General Dan Kane, and there's a lot to get to in terms of this discussion and where we stand as far as U.S. military operations in the Middle East. So this is the head-on shot that we have there of two podiums set up. We also have this one, a bit of a side angle here, so that we don't miss the moment when both of those officials step out onto these microphones and provide the latest information. But joining us next to talk about this and preview possibly what we can expect to hear from this update and also break down where we stand right now as far as those U.S. military operations. It's going to be Matthew Wiz Buckley. He's a retired Navy FA-18 fighter pilot, Top Gun graduate, combat veteran, and founder of the No Fallen Heroes Foundation. Wiz, good morning. Good to have you on today.
Good morning, Carell. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So a lot of what we've been following throughout the last several hours is the fact that President Trump has said that the war would be ending soon there in Iran. I'm assuming that has to do with the scale as to which U.S. military operations are being conducted. But Wiz, given your background, your expertise in this entire case here and these scenarios when it comes to combat, what would need to happen right now to ultimately scale back those U.S. operations? And what should we as viewers be looking out for in this press conference to know that that's what's going to be happening?
Great question. So I believe it was Sun Tzu in The Art of War. He said all battles are won before they're ever fought, right? So this was over before it began, Carell. Just as we've seen in the past year under this administration, whether it was with the Houthis that we just pounded into the ground, Operation Midnight Hammer, that first run at Iraq, and then the Maduro raid, just the overwhelming firepower, superiority, technology of the United States military. The Iranian military never had a chance. So this was over with when it started. So, and I just saw a report that an Iranian ship, wasn't a warship necessarily, it was still a Navy ship, I think a support vessel, said they were having engine problems and put out a mayday call in Sri Lankan waters, and all 200 plus of the crew more or less just defected or requested asylum in Sri Lanka. So there's no Navy. The Navy's on the bottom of the Persian Gulf. The Air Force was destroyed within the first day or two. And at this point, Carell, with absolute air dominance, not just superiority, the highest level of air power is dominance. The Israeli forces, the United States forces are really picking and choosing targets at will. The high priority targets, the launchers. Right? I don't care how many missiles they have. They might have thousands of these things, but they're underground. And obviously we're targeting where they're stored, but you're not launching a missile without a launcher, and you're also not launching a missile without the operators. So the launchers have been destroyed. A lot of the operators have been destroyed. So I think in this press conference today, we're just going to get a sit rep, a situation report as to where the military operations are. Carell, we're not going to wake up one morning and in the next couple days or the next couple weeks, breaking news, Iran has launched a counterstrike, or, what the U.S. is losing now. So I think the president yesterday laid out pretty clearly that, hey, man, this thing's essentially over. We can keep going, but what's the point? We really don't want any more death and destruction to the great Persian, the Iranian people, and we certainly don't want more deaths on the United States side. Sadly, we've lost 7 so far, with a lot of other serious injuries. And as you alluded to, I run the No Fallen Heroes Foundation. We're here. We're here to support those folks when they get out and they become veterans, and also their families right now. So I think we're gonna get some good intel from the Secretary and my buddy Dan Kane this morning.
Yes, and probably we're going to get some more updates on those 7 U.S. soldiers, as you mentioned there, that have died due to this conflict. You laid out a lot of the accomplishments that have already been had, that have been announced by the U.S. given this entire operation in the Middle East. CENTCOM has said that U.S. forces have already hit more than 3,000 targets inside of Iran. Wiz, if you can talk to us a little bit about the planning and the coordination that it takes to pull off all of those different scenarios and to really accomplish those goals, especially when we look at how tense that situation is there, and specifically the airspace as well?
Well, Corral, this might be a little shocking to you. We've been planning this for 47 years. When I was flying...
All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm sorry. I had to step away. I had to drown a brown clown down in Splashtown. But while I was in there, I found some interesting news. I got this on Facebook, so take it with a grain of salt, but it seemed like it came from a fairly official channel. China is talking about invading Taiwan and East Asian countries if the U.S. fight a long war with Iran. There was a video that the BBC aired that seemed to show, like they were standing in front of a bunch of body bags, and it seemed to show one of the body bags moving. There you go.
Look, we're going to use the at least 59 people killed, at least 149 people wounded. Those numbers are going to go up. There's just no question about that. I mean, fierce fighting in a number of locations around the country. You mentioned Chernobyl. Russian forces quickly overtaking that area. We understand they are still in control. The other thing that went down today, that
really BBC? Like, I don't know how real this is. This might be BS. So
15 miles outside of Kyiv, and for a short period of time this afternoon, they held.
Apparently they were live, and somebody captured that. I would love it if anybody wants to look it up and find whether or not that actually aired. It's hard to know what to believe these days, but that was funny, and that's why I showed it to you. I'm not suggesting that it was real, because it very well could be fake. Right. Yeah. The caption in it was either this is the fastest resurrection in modern broadcasting, or someone forgot to tell the extras the camera was already rolling. Nothing says live television quite like background actors missing their cue. Welcome to the age where production value sometimes moves faster than the script. Yeah, that's funny. Whether it's real or not, it's still funny. So, found something else, another story. Senator Cory Booker on Monday introduced legislation that would exempt the first $75,000 of annual income from federal taxes for many households. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? I believe Trump's legislation was anybody under $150,000, and he planned on substituting that income with the tariffs. So since those tariffs were shot down, obviously that's probably not a thing. But I think it's hilarious that Democrats that are so against Trump, what Trump does, everything he does, are taking his ideas. A suspect has been identified in the shooting at Rihanna's home. I do not care about Rihanna. I just found this funny. Ivana Lisette Ortiz, 35 years old, was arrested Sunday and booked on attempted murder. In connection with the incident early Monday morning, her bail has been set at $10,225,000. You dumbass. Rihanna's mansion was struck by gunfire while the singer, actress, and businesswoman was at home, according to the LAPD and sources with knowledge of the investigation. A motive was not immediately clear, and the investigation is ongoing. You can read more at ABC. Now, I found another story that I found absolutely hilarious. Some guy robbed a bank. All right? He rubbed lemon juice on his face before going in. Robbed 2 banks. Smiled at the cameras. Got caught in an hour. Changed psychology forever. In 1995, MacArthur Wheeler, this was a long time ago, who walked into 2 banks in Pittsburgh and robbed them with no mask, no disguise, and lemon juice rubbed all over his face. He believed that because lemon juice works as invisible ink on paper, it would make his face invisible to cameras. He smiled directly into the security cameras. Police aired the footage on the evening news and arrested him within 1 hour. When shown the tape, the guy stared at the screen and said, "But I wore the juice." But he had tested the theory with a Polaroid selfie. It didn't appear in the photo because lemon juice got in his eyes and he aimed the camera at the ceiling. Dumbass. His case inspired Cornell psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger to publish their 1999 paper defining the Dunning-Kruger effect. So that's the case that led to the Dunning-Kruger effect. You know, the psychology stuff that says when you're stupid, you're too stupid to know you're stupid. Yeah, the cognitive bias where people with low ability drastically overestimate their own competence. I thought that was a cute story. So now you know the history of the Dunning-Kruger effect and what it was inspired by. It was inspired by some idiot who thought he could rob banks by putting lemon juice all over his face. Oh, that was great. This also just in. 20 million Bitcoin have been mined. There's only 1 million Bitcoin left. The final 1 million Bitcoin will be mined over the next century. Over the next 100 plus years. That's how long it's going to take. So, the next halving cycle, it's not good. I mean, it's going to inspire less and less people to mine Bitcoin. And I guarantee you, the way Iran has been keeping their cost of electricity down just so people can mine Bitcoin. Because I think in Iran, before we attacked them, I don't know about now, you could mine one whole Bitcoin for less than $2,000. So a lot of people were doing it. There's some YouTuber out there who sometimes he's not always up, but sometimes he has a map of the world showing where people are mining Bitcoins. And you can see a steady stream running to Iran. The majority obviously still comes to America. America, China, and Russia. Those are the three biggest. But there was always a stream, a solid stream running to Iran. So Super MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor has acquired 17,994 Bitcoin for $1.28 billion at 70,946 per Bitcoin. As of the day before yesterday, they hold 738,731 Bitcoin acquired for around $56 billion at an average of 75,862 per coin. So he just bought all those to lower his price point. That was probably a good bet because let's say if he had 50 billion, he bought 1 billion. That's 2% factored into his existing average cost. Yeah, that probably lowered him down a noticeable amount. All right, that's all the news I garried while I was in there sitting on the throne. Let's see. Dollar trying to make a comeback. I saw the heat map was moving a little bit. I'm going to go back to that real quick, like you see. Yeah, Trump just recently said that he thinks the war would be over fairly soon, which is exactly why oil fell below $90. Well, and that's also why I lost the money that I made off of it yesterday. Because I'm a moron that doesn't know when to get out. I was itching for that $150 a barrel. Made $250, then lost it almost exactly because I started with $92. So I'm still up $1.40. That's all right. That's why I got out of it, so I wouldn't lose more than I had put in. And had I not, because I got out at like 95, 94, something like that. Had I not, then I would have lost another 40 or $50, which would have hurt, especially when that right there, that $93.41, that's all the money I have in the world right now. Actually waiting on it to transfer out so I can go to the store and get me some more smokes, because I got 3 or 4 left. So I have nothing investing today because I am not risking that. Plus, I mean, right now everything is just so sideways. These are silver futures. You might be able to catch a long to up here. What's that? A whole 50 cents. get you some 100x leverage, you can make you $50. But when you have 100x leverage, keep in mind, there's 100 times your money being put with your money, which makes your money only 1% of the total. So that means if the price falls 1% on a long, you get liquidated. That's how that formula works. That's why you should have extra money in your account to act as a liquidity pool. So if you wanted to invest, say, $1,000 at 100x leverage, you'd probably want to have $5,000 to $10,000 in the liquidity pool, just so you can handle a possible, and that would just give you a 5 to 10% window. So that would mean if you put $1,000 on something that was worth $1,000, just to keep our numbers easy, that would allow it to go down to about, what, $950 before you got liquidated? No. Yeah, I'm sorry, I ain't mathing. But you get what I'm saying. You need some liquidity in the pool to buffer against your leverage, especially when you have a 100x leverage, because your investment counts as 1%. It drops 1%, you get liquidated. That's how that works. Algo? See you, Mike, in the chat. Is that a symbol you want me to look up? What do you mean? You talking about Algorand? Well, if you were talking about Algorand, there's Algorand. Looking pretty similar to Bitcoin. Actually, it's looking a little better than Bitcoin. Mike, I don't understand what you mean based on words very complete. Not entirely sure exactly what you mean. Sorry, I'm old and slow. Help me out here. If it was Algorand, there it is. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's had very big moves. It just looks like a good, slow and steady run. I mean, since 2:30 this morning. Yeah, you went up 3 whole cents and then back down 1, so it's gone up. This is only 2 cents, but that's more than, I'd say that's it's about 4%, 4.5%. Oh shit, it's 4.68%. But that's over all the way to here. So since 8 o'clock last night, bang. Mike K 8556. I hope that's what you meant. Algorand. It's currently showing a sell signal. I should remind everybody, take these signals with a grain of salt. I do not endorse what they say, because as you can see, short signal came a little late, right? So it could be done right here. You can pretty much size it up and decide if it's ready to go back up, and it'll probably give you a sell signal right around here, before it does. It'll probably have to cross over this line before it gives you a buy signal. Because it fell below this. That's not a line. But yeah. All right. Who's invested in oil? Anybody? Oh yeah, Mike. Pay attention to this down here. I don't know what charts you usually look at, but I keep RSI up. Relative Strength Index. And as you can see, it's below the 40 mark. The current and the average which suggests it's going to continue going down. Now, this is always history. This isn't a predictive model. So, if it follows the trend of what it's done, it is currently going down. And as long as it stays below 40, that's where it'll go. As it gets lower than 40, it could go lower than that. It's not going to come back up until it gets up to the 65-ish mark, RSI. But as it creeps up, it'll go up, but very slowly. RSI acts like a throttle. Since it's right at 40, it's moving a little slow. Now, the further lower this RSI goes, the faster that goes down. But once it gets down into like the 20s and teens, it's becoming overbought or oversold. I can never get those right. This green shading right here, that implies oversold. It's heating up. It's getting too hot, which means it's going to come down soon. And what did it do right after? Bang, bang. Held on a little bit more, and then bang, bang. So yeah, that run was right up in here when it was running hot. And as you can see, it tried to dip down a little bit, but it still had a little juice in it. And then it came down here. Still had a little more to go and tried to hang on, hit that resistance, and said, oh no. And as you guys probably figured out, I don't really draw too many lines on my charts, just because they don't always apply. Plus, I can just eyeball that. You know, if you wanted to draw a line from here to here, you could probably go ahead and draw a line, right? Let's put a line from here to right around here. If it stops going down, then there's your window. I would be inclined to say once it gets above that is when you're really going to see it move. Once it, gets past this little level right here. All right, seeing a lot of red in the pre-market. Dollar's on its way up. Is that affecting oil? It sure is. Damn it. See, if I went and used my little balance here to buy a damn long, it would tie my money up for 2 more days. But I gotta have it to go get smokes. There's an opportunity right there. It's wanting to break through this right here. You can pretty much follow the dollar. If the dollar makes it up through here, it is smooth sailing for oil. And yesterday, that committee that was supposed to decide on releasing a bunch of reserves into the market to stave off this $100 a barrel, they decided not to. Yet oil still came down. That's why I lost my ass. Because I had profited fairly well, but then lost all of my profit. Didn't lose my principal though, which I am grateful for, but damn it, this makes me want to jump in. As soon as I do though, it'll come crashing down. That's how it always works. Bitcoin taking a little bit of a breather. This could be a little bit of a flag if that wasn't being so screwy. This was looking like a nice little staircase. So I think the dollar performing is causing this. Market's still up over the 24-hour, over the last hour, still kind of flat. And these are dividend yield stocks with the highest returns and the stocks with the highest dividend yields. If you would like to get into some of those, take note. Granite Shares Yield Boost Tesla ETF. And then YieldMax SMCI Option Income Strategy ETF. So does that mean that's an ETF with the options on the options? Huh. They have the same thing for Coinbase, Robinhood ETF. Interesting. I've never really looked at some of those. Not familiar with them. All right, GDP is looking up. Interest rates coming down a little bit. We are due for some interest rate cuts. Actually, we're due for some money printing. In fact, my cousin dropped a whole bunch of info on me yesterday about these interest rates and what's been due for quite a while. Look at that. Look at these nothing interest rates from March 2020 all the way to February 22. 2 years, we had 0.25 interest rates. Then up 0.5%. Then up up to 1, 2.5, 3.25, 4, 5, 6, 5.5. Back down to 3.75. That's your typical interest rate. If you've got bad credit, your interest rate's way higher than that. But that's the basis. These are all the stocks that I put in for SpaceX suppliers. These are just what I'm watching. These are all the companies that supply SpaceX. And ahead of the IPO, I would say that in general, all of these companies are worth looking at. I need to take this one off because I'm pretty sure this is the Korean Bastille company that they buy their metals from. If you trade in the Korean markets, cool. I do not. I have not. Bitcoin looking like it wants to inch up. Let's go back to what they're saying in the news.
Known for wearing yellow shirts are in charge of the catapults, taxiing jets around on the flight deck, shooting jets off the front end, and recovering jets off the back. Standing on that aircraft carrier flight deck, there's 30 knots of wind in your face. The deck is slippery, covered in grease. It's noisy. There are propellers spinning. There's jet blast everywhere. The helicopters are running. Your head is on a swivel, and you're trying to direct a multi-million-dollar fighter into a 1-foot square box so that those naval aviators can be shot off into the black of night to go do America's work. Those jets are fully loaded with missiles and bombs, and they are a world-class team combined with the naval aviation and the aviators in those jets. This beautiful symphony of American spirit is the definition of perfectly organized chaos, and these crews do it every single time the carrier is at work. Oh, by the way, in the middle of the night and oftentimes in the pouring rain. These are dedicated young people who take the road less traveled to serve their great nation, doing the deeds that we need them to do. America's enlisted force is the pride of every nation's military, certainly ours, and the envy of every other one as well. Each and every one of them out there across the joint force are extraordinary, and in particular today I want to highlight the yellow shirts. Ladies and gentlemen, our work continues. It'll continue to be difficult. I ask every American to keep our deployed force and their families in our thoughts. Combat deployments can be tough on the force and the families, and it's important that we continue to remember that. I remain deeply humbled by the 2.8 million members of the Joint Force, and I'll end where I started, and that's remembering our fallen and their families whose sacrifice will be felt forever. And with that, I'll take some questions with the Secretary.
A beautiful symphony of American spirit. Well said, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir.
And I will just note that no other country in the world is capable of executing what the chairman just described, day after day, night after night, unrelenting. Well said. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Alexandra Ingersoll, One America News. You talked, Mr. Secretary, you talked at the conference in Florida on Thursday that there was a 90% missile capabilities degradation and 83% drone degradation, and I know the chairman just repeated those numbers. We've seen the most amount of fighting these past 5 days. Is there any update to those percentages? And also, are you able to give any quantification of degradation to the enemy's nuclear capabilities yet?
What those numbers represent is a persistent low ability to respond, which is what we're looking for, right? It's if the enemy can simply wait and then project power, that's problematic. And we've seen some spurts here or there, but ultimately the trend lines, if you look at the charts that we look at every day, have gone like this down to a flat. It doesn't mean they won't be able to project. It doesn't mean our air defenders still don't have to defend. They do, but that is strong evidence of degradation, along with the battle damage assessment that the Joint Staff does, which takes time. You've got to look at imagery and recognize whether something's been simply degraded or it's been destroyed, or whether an underground facility has been collapsed or completely obliterated. So there's differences in how you evaluate that, but the numbers staying that low is a demonstration of the efficacy for sure. Yeah, Ryan.
Thanks, Mr. Secretary. There's been reports that the new leader of Iran has been wounded. Do you know if this is true and what his condition is? And then another one, President Trump said he had a really good call with President Putin yesterday. Will Russia be aiding us in this conflict, and can you share anything on that?
Well, the president, as I've said before, maintains strong relationships with world leaders, which creates opportunities and options for us in very dynamic ways. So the president said it was a good call. I was not on it, but those that were said it was a strong call, reaffirming hopefully the opportunity for some peace in Russia-Ukraine, and also a recognition that as it pertains to this conflict, they should not be involved. The first question was?
On the new leader of Iran, there's reports that he's been wounded.
Oh, the new leader of Iran. He would be wise to heed the words of our president, which is to not pursue nuclear weapons and come out and state as such. As far as his status, that's not something I can comment on right now. Yeah, right here.
Correct. Mr. Secretary, Eric Schmidt with the New York Times. A question for you first. Last week, you talked about this being the beginnings of an air campaign that could last 3 to 8 weeks. Can you give us your assessment on where we are now? And Mr. Chairman, in any conflict, the enemy or the adversary adapts to the tactics it faces. Can you talk about the most challenging adaptation the Iranian military has made to the U.S. military? What challenges are you facing most right now? Thank you.
I appreciate the question. Where we are is in a very strong place, giving the President of the United States maximum options. And from the beginning, from this podium, we haven't stated how long it will take. Our will is endless. Ultimately, the President gets to determine the end state of those objectives, right? But what he's said continually, and I want the American people to understand, is this is not endless. It's not protracted. We're not allowing mission creep. The President has set a very specific mission to accomplish, and our job is to unrelentingly deliver that. Now, he gets to control the throttle. He's the one deciding, he's the one elected on behalf of the American people when we're achieving those particular objectives. And so it's not for me to posit whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end. That's his, and he'll continue to communicate that. What we serve him as is we give him updates on a daily basis of exactly where we are so he can make that determination on the throttle. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the question on adaptation. As you're right, no plan survives first contact with the enemy or Murphy. They're adapting, as are we. Of course, we have very entrepreneurial warfighters out there. I'd rather not, for operational security reasons, tell them what's working. So I'm not a not answer that question based on that. But we are watching what they're doing, and we are adapting faster than they are.
Are they more formidable than you anticipated, General?
I mean, I think they're fighting, and I respect that, but I don't think they're more formidable than what we thought.
Secretary Eric said, thank you. Jordan Conrad's from the Gateway Pundit. Axios reported, citing U.S. and Israeli sources, that the U.S. was not happy with strikes on 30 fuel depots in Iran. While this is anonymous sourcing, it seems kind of congruent with what President Trump said yesterday, that there's certain spots they don't want to hit relating to energy infrastructure that would take a long time to rebuild. And whether this reporting is true or not, what's your message to Americans, those who supported the president and those who aren't really in favor of this war and who worry that Israel might be taking advantage of the U.S.'s backing? And then for Mr. Chairman, for you, I wanted to ask, when you say that we're moving inland, what capabilities does Iran have to shoot down jets over their land? And would that trigger some kind of rescue operation that could risk a bigger ground operation?
Well, I would just state by saying Israel's been a really strong partner in this effort. Where they have different objectives, they've pursued them. Ultimately, we've stayed focused on ours. But what Iran has felt is the power of the world's two most powerful air forces. In that particular case, those weren't our strikes or that objective, or that wasn't necessarily our objective. But the president has made it clear to those concerns that we're not getting pulled in any direction. We're leading. The president is leading. He's determining where we want to go, what the outcome will be, what the end state is, with a very keen eye. And I understand those concerns because I've heard from a lot of people who I went through 20 years of those wars myself, worried about getting dragged in, worried about mission creep, worried about nation building or democracy expansion. That's never the perspective the president has pursued on this. Just because previous presidents and previous secretaries have decided to just pour more resources and more people in toward some unguided end state, doesn't mean that's the way the world needs to look today. In fact, the American people voted for a different approach. But what the president also stated from the beginning was Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. And it's one thing to say it. It's easy to say. Anybody can say that. I mean, Barack Obama said that. But to do something about it takes courage and resolve. But in that courage and in that resolve, you can also
nobody before Trump had the
balls
balls
to ensure that the sacrifice of Americans, American treasure, American lives,
Iran has
all
had
of
it a long
those
time
properly
coming. Long
meet
time coming.
The objective that you're trying to accomplish. And certainly, as someone I talked out front about what the Iranians have done to our generation, yes, we're clear-eyed about it. But my job is to keep it scoped.
Anyone here ever visit Iran?
To the president to accomplish the mission.
Thank you for the question. Most of their
that's what I thought.
Surface-to-air missile systems are not factors at this point in time. We're able to move around fighters that are moving deeper with relative impunity. Always some risk out there. I don't want to say that there isn't, and we'll always maintain and retain capability of doing search and rescue type of things, but I don't want to get into the details.
Okay, no details.
Over the weekend. For the women, Texas just upset South Carolina, so I like them as a sneaky pick.
All right, well, what I have been locked into is the World Baseball Classic, which is already generating tons of buzz and wraps up pool play on Wednesday before the quarterfinals.
That's exclusive content.
The vibes are absolutely
that
incredible.
Later, I will monetize behind a membership wall.
Already. The Japanese and Dominican fans are
you pay
next
extra
level,
for
and
burps
Team
and
Italy
farts.
even has an espresso machine in their dugout.
Yeah,
I
I'm
open
kidding.
X and I see a random.
I doubt I will ever have a membership wall because I'm not a dick. I'm completely fine with sharing all of my content with all of you. That's how these sites, YouTube and Rumble, should be. I'm not going to hide any material, any content behind a damn paywall. And certainly not going to... YouTube keeps pushing me to create memberships to sell to my viewers. And all they've offered is for me to make special content just for them, of course. But then all they're offering is extra stickers to use. Like, no, I'm sorry, but y'all can use the emojis that are in the chat. I don't think you want to pay just to have a few extra little emojis, because that's literally all that they were offering. So, I will never hide any content behind a paywall, except when I get to Thailand, because I will have a Patreon account, mainly because the stuff I'll be recording it will not be able to be shown on YouTube. So, my Patreon account is not active right now, so I'm not even going to share it. I'm just letting you guys know. When I get to Thailand, I'm going to make y'all want to move to Thailand. Just you wait and see. Anyway, alright. Heat map looking like a bunch of red. Bitcoin struggling to pick up the pace. It was looking like it wanted to make a little bit of a flag, and I guess you could technically say that it's still in the realm of what a flag would have done. This right here, as you notice, it came down, but it still went back up to follow that line, that increase. So based on that, and the fact that it came down to right here, I would say that this right here was just a protracted pole forming. Now, watch. How many minutes is that? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Almost exactly an hour. So if I pull up an hour chart, that will be a flag. Looks like the Loch Ness Monster. It needs to stay right where it is, and it will probably come back up to right about here. Maybe it'll bust through if it has enough momentum, and then when it busts through, it'll start doing this stuff right here until it decides it's ready to go up higher. Each candle is 1 hour. That's the 15-minute. Two-hour looking good. 4-hour still looks good. I mean, look at all these little wedges. Bitcoin's itching. It is itching. Back to the 5-minute. Oil futures looking like a buy. Son of a bitch. Oh, listen, I'm not in any way asking, but if you're on YouTube, this does not count for Rumble. If you're on YouTube, please don't use that super chat feature. Right now, I've got like, I don't know, $60 in my YouTube account. There's a $100 minimum payout, and they won't pay out until I confirm my address. Well, I'm technically homeless, so I don't have an address to confirm. Not yet. I'm working on it. But yeah, so any super chats you might send will get stuck in limbo for a few months at least. So yeah, I figured I'd just say that, just in case. You don't have to send anything. This does not apply to Rumble. I'm pretty sure on Rumble they've got a $50 minimum payout, and I'm at about $12. So I won't be able to withdraw anything from Rumble till it gets up to that $50. So that's like another $40-ish. But on Rumble, that's fine. That's different. But on YouTube, please do not send any super chats. It'll get stuck in limbo for at least 2 or 3 months. If you'd like to donate, there are links in the description. There's all kinds of ways to donate. I'm not asking for donations. I'm not out here begging. I'm just saying, just in case. I would hate for somebody to donate and not know that, and then their money just gets stuck in limbo. Because I will not be able to touch any YouTube money for a few months. This is a small channel. I just recently got monetized with YouTube. And yeah, it's a $100 pay point. I'm at like $60 anyway. But still, as long as I can't confirm my address, being that I'm homeless, I can't. So any money that anybody super chats will get lost in limbo. I'll still get it, but it'll be like 2 or 3 months before I can touch it. So, and money is very tight right now. I just transferred my last $100 out of Coinbase because I got to go get smokes and cat food today and gas in the car. That's pretty much gone. Waiting on my tax refund. That's dragging out. Hey, I'm just curious. I've got 5 people watching. Have any of y'all gotten your tax refund yet? Has anybody got any weird hang-ups that's just giving no reason? There's just a delay. Like, it's supposed to be received within 3 weeks. Mine's been like going on 6 weeks now, and there's no information anywhere that says why. It just says it's on the way. It says it was accepted. It doesn't say it was approved yet. But yeah, I didn't leave anything out. I just don't know why my tax refund is taking so long. So I'm curious if there's anybody in the chat that is having a delay with their tax refund. Please let me know. I would love to know if I'm not alone. It would make me feel way better about my situation if you're also delayed.
So listening in there to that update that we had from officials at the Pentagon talking about Operation Epic Fury, U.S. military operations there continuing in the Middle East after the U.S. and Israel issued joint strikes against Iran just over a week ago. Do you want to pivot from this live image, taking you back out, though, to the Capitol building over in Washington, D.C. Now, a lot to get to on this morning, specifically when it comes to those headlines coming out of the Middle East and really the impact that is being felt all over the world. We just wanted to make sure that we brought to you those comments in full from Secretary Pete Hegseth as well as General Dan Kane. It's similar to the last 2 updates that we have gotten from the Pentagon, and it also comes as President Trump says that he is hoping to wrap up really a lot of those operations in the Middle East. We're going to step away for a quick commercial break here at Live Now from Fox, but much more of your top stories when we come back.
RentHop has more NYC rental listings than any other site, sourced directly from landlords.
Sumo Citrus, the ultimate experience for all of your senses.
You, just you, building your app on Base 44. Describe it. And it's real. One thought leads to more thoughts. Layer by layer, taking shape. When you need your tools, bring them in. They just click. Okay, kick it up a notch. Create something smarter. Something powerful. Style counts, so give it your touch. Big or small. Next idea hits at 2 a.m. Of course it does. Keep building. Ask yourself, wait, I built this? Damn right. Base 44. Build it your way.
Every time those songs play, they try and charge me.
Stock versus flow. I hadn't heard that applied to the job market, but you broke that down very well. So what should people expect into the end of the year? Do you think 2026?
Hey, look at that news alert. Bitcoin's next move is fundamentally tied to oil.
Where do they look, and what are the investment opportunities?
Well, you know, it
seems like healthcare is doing all the hiring.
Yeah,
here.
well, that's the thing. I mean, the bulk of it, and that's another interesting way to think about the job backdrop is
if you look at the net percentage of industries that are hiring, now it has, firmly crossed into positive territory. It's been there for a while. It's at 55%. That's the so-called employment diffusion index. So just the share of industries on a net basis that are hiring. So that is stronger. But when you look at the composition of it, it's health and education services that are dominating that. And especially for 2025, that was the sector basically that was adding all of payrolls. If you took that out, you kind of had nothing, essentially, on a year-to-year basis. I think that, admittedly, I had a feeling coming into 26 and the data that we were looking at, that you were probably going to see some sort of stabilization in unemployment by the middle of the year, and maybe an eventual rolling over, because a lot of the CapEx data that we've seen in the business spending data and just the strength of that historically does lead to stronger employment data. So I think it's maybe being pulled forward a little bit, so we didn't expect it to happen as soon as it's happening now. If you did in fact see the peak in the unemployment rate being in November, that is a pretty material, I think, move and shift for the economy. But what that means for hiring, I'm not so sure it's going to be as robust as it has been in prior expansions. I just think back to the labor force point, there's just not as much for us to draw from. And I think a lot of companies have still been spooked by, number one, what happened with tariffs last year, still adjusting to that. But number two, being able to figure out if they can continue to grow their businesses without having to hire a lot. And you've heard certain anecdotes about this in the media and the news over the past, several months. But to the extent now that AI becomes a little bit of a bigger player in that, not having to hire as many people, especially at the entry level, I think that's going to be a really big focus for this year. So to me, I think about it a lot in stabilization terms. Whether it is this firm reacceleration, I think it's a little bit of a different story, especially when you compare it to prior cycles and the fact that we didn't go through a traditional recession, in the past year.
We're just checking out news for waiting on the market bell.
Staying with some more of these international headlines, though, as I bring us out to this live image that we continue to have over in Beirut, Lebanon. We know that it's not just the U.S. continuing more of those military operations there in the Middle East, but also Israel, as it continues to strike against targets that they say are Hezbollah infrastructure strike.
All right, let's go over to Bloomberg.
The kind of everyone outside the top 20% of the kind of income distribution, potentially that's going to wear this kind of more. So I think you've got to weigh potential kind of positive headwinds, positive tailwinds for the consumer versus some of the kind of negative impacts potentially from higher oil prices. So I think it will depend on how those kind of play out in the next couple of weeks and months. And I think the key thing here with all of the kind of potential impacts for the economy from the oil price increase is really the extent and the persistence of that increase in oil prices. And I think that's what's going to be key in terms of how this feeds into kind of growth and also into inflation.
One of the tailwinds has also been the idea of rate cuts. How much is there momentum in the consumer, particularly at the lower end, should the Fed remain on hold?
Yeah, so I mean, in our expectations, we've got 50 basis points of cuts from the FOMC this year. And in terms of the timing of that, we think it's potentially kind of second half, so July, October. I think at the margin, that easing in interest rates is something that is supportive and helpful for the consumer. But that would, in theory, bring interest rates back round to around neutral. It doesn't necessarily outright stimulate the economy at this point. I think for us, when we're thinking about the kind of resilience and the potential strength of the consumer, I think that fiscal story is actually potentially the more important part of the kind of outlook this year for the consumer, rather than necessarily the kind of tailwind from monetary policy easing.
We've been talking about how that fiscal tailwind could potentially be absorbed by higher oil prices. How do you sort of weigh where oil prices?
All right, we had about 50 minutes until the market opens. I'm going to go have another smoke. Wait for my medication to kick in. Very, 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 very serious medication. Very, very serious, yeah. So, if nobody's got anything in the meantime, I'm going to go have a smoke. So do you think that I should crank up the volume on the mic and speak in my jazz voice throughout the entire stream? Comment below if you would like my jazz voice. I'm going to go smoke. I'm going to leave you with Bloomberg.
I think the risk, if we're thinking about the distribution around that, I think, potentially if you see kind of more of a growth hit, if you see this kind of labor market vulnerability persisting, I think that you could potentially see the risk that rate cuts come sooner than we're expecting. And then I think, if we think about the kind of risks on the opposite side, the potential for rates coming later and them holding longer, I think that's really going to depend on what we see in the inflation data. Obviously, we'll get the February CPI this week. We're expecting that you see a slowing in terms of the monthly prints there, but we do think that will be the low point for the CPI this year. So, we're expecting that pushes higher and we see inflation peaking in the second
Independent of what happens in the Middle East, that's the low for this year?
Yeah, so that was our profile previously as well, because we're still seeing that tariff pass-through coming through. You are seeing kind of elevated core goods price increases, even if you are seeing a little bit better inflation on the services side.
So the call for 50 basis points, is that a call based on the economy or the man who's going to be the Fed chair?
So it's based on the idea that, if we think about when we're thinking we see inflation peaking, we do think that the run rates of inflation will begin to peak in the second quarter. And I think at that point as well, we're expecting that the labour market still looks vulnerable. We have the unemployment rate pushing higher from here to 4.5, 4.6 by the summer. So I think with that dynamic, I think that's a point at which in July you should see kind of enough inflation progress for them to think, okay, we should remove a little bit of that excess restrictiveness.
Got it. Abigail, good to see you. Thanks for breaking it down. Thank you. Abigail Watt there of UBS. So we see unemployment climbing through the summer potentially and into the midterms. Ultimately, it's going to be the political framework there. That's not great reading. Won't be great for the administration to hear, and won't be great to see if that's how it plays out.
Especially after what we got with the job report that we got on Friday, which seemed to confirm that. I do wonder how important CPI and core PCE are going to be this week, given you need to see that progress in inflation to allow this to happen.
Brent crude this morning is down by 6%. We're at 93. WTI is down by about 5. We're at 90 so far this morning. Up next, we'll set you up for the day ahead. Plus, Jim Caron of Morgan Stanley joins us, remaining confident the markets can get back on the right track. That conversation just around the corner from New York City. You're watching Bloomberg TV.
In case you missed it, on Bloomberg Crypto.
There's a debate going on right now in DC that I think folks need to start paying more attention to, and that is the yield. And the question really is, who is going to keep the yield? Who makes money off stablecoins? Well, right now, in the case of some of the large stablecoin issuers, there's a yield that on those deposits. So when there's a dollar, for example, deposited in a bank account, there's interest paid on that dollar. And so who's capturing that yield? And I think one of the really interesting things about the Genius Act is that it bans so-called yield-bearing stablecoins from giving that yield directly back to consumers. Now, that's not true everywhere. And I think if consumers have a choice, why would a consumer want an institution to keep that yield? Or would there be sharing of that yield? So right now, one of the debates going on is, will rewards be allowed? And I think these are really important questions.
Don't miss Bloomberg Crypto live Tuesdays.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives.
and laying the foundation for the future.
From finance to defense, AI to entertainment.
And from the road to the stars. Bloomberg brings you the latest stories of the people and companies pushing the tech sector to new frontiers.
And the politics that shape global tech markets.
I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Watch Bloomberg Tech every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg Television.
Why do the biggest names in business choose Bloomberg Television?
That's a great question.
It's a very good question.
Interesting question. Good question.
Great question.
I so appreciate that question.
You certainly ask interesting questions.
Bloomberg Television. Top experts, great questions.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geopolitical news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Stephen Engel at Japan's Akasaka Palace in Tokyo, and this is Bloomberg.
Today will be, yet again, our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The last 24 hours have seen Iran fire the lowest number of missiles they've been capable of firing. We will not relent until the enemy is totally and decisively defeated.
That was the Defense Secretary in a briefing at the Pentagon just moments ago, weighing in on the facts on the ground and where the operation currently stands, as many of you would call it, and where the war currently stands. In the commodity market, this is how the price of things is shaping up right now. Brent crude is down by 7%, WTI is down by 6%. The facts on the ground, drones, projectiles still being thrown into Gulf nations from Iran, and it's doing damage. And we see that in the UAE, intercepting, at least attempting to, a series of drones and missiles once again today. One hitting the biggest refinery in the country. They've had to stop as a precaution. We've talked about the size of that, the capacity to process 900,000 barrels of oil per day. A lot of energy production and output is being taken out in this region.
Yeah, we've gotten already 6% of the output taken off, the 6% of the output in the world, right? I mean, this is 6.7 million barrels from 4 nations of 20 million barrels per day that is produced. This is a crucial area of oil production for the world. When do we start talking about the fundamentals of what's being taken offline and how long it's going to take to put it back on? Until we get a timeline, we can't even go there. And I think that that is the level.
For stocks, they're searching for direction as President Trump signals the war in Iran might be nearing its end. Jim Karen of Morgan Stanley writing, our base case remains that strong fundamental underpinnings in the economy plus easier fiscal policies will allow for prices to resume higher. Jim joins us now for more. Jim, good morning.
Good morning.
Still constructive?
I am still constructive. It's not going to be as easy as it sounds, though. I don't think it's going to be a straight line. I think that we do have to recognize what the initial conditions in the markets were prior to the event of the war and what they might be coming out of it. Look, in my career, I've experienced 3 of these. This is my 3rd one. The first one in the early 1990s, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, early 2000s, and here we are again. Each one of these events absolutely caused volatility, but the difference between this one and the last 2 was that the initial conditions coming into the markets today with a lot of fiscal stimulus, we have a lot of tax refunds coming in, we have relatively low interest rates. I think inflation obviously is under pressure right now, but it was headed down. Jobs data, confidence data, a lot of things were going right. And I do think that we will be able to put this behind us at some point. The question is, how long will this all last? Because I think the duration's a big point. What, if anything, breaks, and how long will it take to repair? And that's really what the risk is.
Are you seeing anything break?
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing signs, right? So the way that I look at this is that there are 3 basic risks that are out there. The first one is correlation risk. So first of all, and the second one's liquidity, and the third is contagion. So the correlation risk right now is that you're having equity prices come down and you're having bond prices come down. So there's no place to really hedge yourself, and that creates a scary situation in markets. But liquidity is still functioning relatively well in markets. Markets are functioning well based on repo markets and things like that. And contagion, we're not really seeing this become a broad-based wave of defaults coming through the markets because of this energy shock. So I think there are 2 out of these 3 reasons. The liquidity and the contagion component are okay for right now. The correlation risk, though, is relatively high.
And we've seen some pretty big losses being reported, at least by Bloomberg, in terms of certain hedge funds in particular. Bloomberg reporting Millennium, Balyasny, and Point72 among them. Are you seeing forced sales that are opportunities to really get in there?
Well, see, that's what we're looking at, right? So we came into this relatively well balanced in our portfolio, somewhat high quality and defensive. So for us, this has actually not been as big of a shock to our particular management and our portfolios. So we are looking, from my perspective.
I am currently sending out alerts because I want to gather as many people possible before I go exposing Crypto.com for ripping me off for thousands. They also ripped my son off for thousands. And I'm going to give you a good reason why you should never deal with Crypto.com. They're all well and good and fun, and they make trading derivatives a lot easier, even though their margins for their liquidity is a little difficult to understand. Yeah, so just give me a few moments to share this live stream out so I can get as many people in here, because I would want to spread this message far and wide. So I'm going to put Bloomberg on. Just give me like 3 or 4 minutes.
Back down to where they were. I think that they're going to settle at a higher level than where they were. So if you're looking at Brent, we're not looking at $70 Brent going forward. We're probably looking at best case scenario somewhere around like 80, I think, for this year. So I don't think that this shock just goes away, right? I think that we're taking the growth hit. We are going to get that. We are taking probably higher inflation right now, and the market's repricing for this. So the question is where is the market repricing? Where is that overshooting? And does it actually give us an opportunity to enter? And we think that there are some selective opportunities where
coming
we
to
can
get me. Crypto.com's coming to get me.
I don't think that we tip ourselves into a recession necessarily. Now, clearly anything can happen, and we'll react to it. But for right now, we think that this is still volatility in markets that we can take advantage of.
What are the openings right now? You call them dislocations. We're single digits away from all-time highs.
Yeah,
on the S&P. Where are the openings?
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we debate, right? Is we're sitting here saying, well, we do want to buy something relatively cheap, but nothing's really cheapened a whole lot. But you know what, John? That's actually a relatively strong sign for the markets, that the markets aren't willing to really take this down. Now, some people will say, oh, the markets are completely missing this. I don't believe the markets are that dumb. I think the markets are pretty smart. I think it really depends where you are. So the cyclical broadening theme, I still think, is a very strong theme. I think a lot of the technology sector has already come in relatively weak and relatively well discounted going into this. So it's not like we came in to this event where everybody was way overbought, way overlong at the moment. So I think we have to be a little bit less emotional, and we have to think through the valuations and where the opportunities are. And to your point, we're not seeing screaming buys at this point. So we're being slow, but we are starting to add.
Jim, it's good to see you. Jim Caron of Morgan Stanley Investment Management, still constructive on this market and seeing the ability to add as we get these dips. And they are small dips to the grand scheme of things.
They are small dips, but he's not alone. A lot of people saying this is a good opportunity, especially as it does seem like people are looking for off-ramps.
Equities right now on the S&P, negative by about 1/10% going into the opening bell. The president seemingly sending the signal that maybe he's looking for an off-ramp and capping the advance on crude. Crude this morning down by 7%, 92.30, 89.40 on WTI. We've talked continuously this morning about the hope that we can take that off-ramp, establish one, and go down it. And the reality on the ground and the facts on the ground are still deeply concerning.
This morning, the reports of a fire at a UAE or near a UAE refinery, very much concerning. We'll continue to monitor this and figure out whether people come to more of an off-ramp.
Coming up tomorrow, Francis Donald of RBC, Lisa Shallard of Morgan Stanley, Jeff Curry of Carlyle, and the former St. Louis Fed President Jim Bullard from New York City this morning. Good morning. Stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow. This was Bloomberg Surveillance.
We're into the second week at Indian Wells. Five-time champion Novak Djokovic fought his way past American Alexandra Kovacevic in 3 sets to reach the 4th round for the first time since 2017. The victory for the 38-year-old makes him the second oldest man to reach the round of 16 at a Masters 1000 event.
You know how the market day started.
Find out how it finishes.
Public markets to private markets.
From the micro to the macro.
Covering retail, entertainment, the business of sport.
Investors don't ring a bell. They quietly reshape entire industries.
We hadn't really seen any deals above $30 billion. And now we're seeing, Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers, $80 billion, the big railroad deal. And what we're hearing from sources is that next year we're going to see more of the same. It's just going to be the mega deal.
I would expect next year will be an even better year for M&A and IPOs.
That's just kind of what we do at Serena Ventures, is just kind of learn how we can fill in different gaps in different areas that are being missed. And by the way, these gaps tend to be really, really massive.
I know you've been very bullish on the return of M&A. Do you expect more deals, if they are of this size, to have the same sort of structure and contours?
I think we're going to see the return of large transactions, and I think they're going to avail themselves of both private credit options and public options.
There's a lot of merger talk. There's a lot of firepower.
Investors wanted to know at what price would this deal be, and now they answered that question at $70 a share.
So congratulations to Bloomberg's Deals team for getting it first.
I'm Danny Berger, and this is Bloomberg Deals.
About to tell
Every
y'all
week, only on Bloomberg Television.
We have two crises, two essential crises, and for both it's now or never. Democracy and...
All right. I'm going to put the news back on. I'm still sharing a little bit because I want as many people possible to witness what I'm about to tell you about Crypto.com.
But we have homegrown energy sources, nuclear.
That QR code
and
that's
renewable.
showing
And together they can become the joint
is
guarantors
for anybody who would like to donate. You don't
independence,
have to, and I'm not out here begging. I
security of
could
supply,
really use a
and
little bit of cash, but
competitiveness.
hey,
If
I just
we
want
get it
people to
right
see that
now.
instead of any of the super chats on YouTube.
Over the
This
last
only applies to
decade, we've made
YouTube.
great
I mean,
progress
anybody
on
can scan it, of
renewables.
course, but
Solar and wind have overtaken fossil fuels.
if you're on Rumble and you want to donate, you can via their chat ways. That's fine. Rumble, you don't have to worry about it. Rumble, it's YouTube because my cash is tied up. Or, my situation with YouTube. I am technically homeless, so I can't confirm my address, which makes me unable to withdraw any. Plus, I'm like $40 underneath the price point, the payout price point. So I can't withdraw unless I get over $100. This channel is monetized, but it is so minuscule because it's just so small. And so that's there if you want. You definitely don't have to. Me love you long time if you do though. And I will do a special analysis for anyone who does. Just to show my love for you. All right. Let me go ahead and share this out just a wee bit more because I want everybody to know why you should not use Crypto.com. So I'm literally sharing this out to every single crypto group that I'm in on social media because everybody should be warned. I told Crypto.com I was going to do this too. They pretty much laughed in my face. They ripped me off straight up. Twice. Once, the first time they tried, I backed them into a corner where they couldn't lie anymore to me, and they ended up refunding me several $100s that they owed me and wanted to keep. Took me a month, but I finally got that. However, something similar happened to my son. He got ripped off for thousands of dollars. And then something like that happened to me recently, which they have ripped me off of probably thousands of dollars. I really don't even know how much it is. But I feel like this message is very important. If you trade on Crypto.com at all, you should be very aware of how they treat their people, their customers, even when you spend a lot of money. Okay, I had $50,000 in my account. I wasn't a small user, you know what I mean? And the way they treated me was criminal. And what they've done needs to be told to the world because it's ridiculous. So bear with me. I am still sharing this out to hundreds of places. Well, not hundreds, that would take forever, but a lot. Every investment group I'm in on Facebook, every investment group I'm in on X. And if you want to share this to someone you want to warn about crypto.com, please do, because now is the time. I've been waiting to tell this story. I was going to make a video about it, but you know what? This is going to be the easiest way to get it out there for everybody to see. Your money is not safe in crypto.com. I'll go ahead and tell you about the first time. First time they tried to rip me off, and I talked them into a corner and made them give me my money back, which they tried to keep, okay? First time, I was trading dividends, buying the up and down contracts as they have them listed. And in the middle of trading, not at a scheduled update time, there was no warning, their system crashed. Their system went down, and I was unable to sell my contracts at a profit. Their network crashed. They admitted to it and said, sorry, we're experiencing technical difficulties. Well, it's because of those technical difficulties I couldn't sell my contract and make that profit. Instead, the order went in, it sat there, and as soon as their system came back up, it sold at a loss. So no. That was not my problem. That was your problem. And you could plainly see the attempt to sell. So I got into the chat with support, and first thing they said is, we apologize for the convenience. One of our computers went down. I said, okay. So I screenshotted all that. And then after about, a month of them researching my account, basically just pushing me off and hoping that I'll just forget about it, right? We're talking about $700 that I would have lost. That, while I was waiting, was stuck in limbo. All right. I do believe I am just about done sharing this. Share it in one more place. But yeah, anyway, they came back into the chat after me fighting with them, and they tried to say there was no liquidity in the market. To which I replied with, here's screenshots of y'all admitting it, that was your fault. Give me my money. So then they tried to throw in a bunch of technical jargon, BS, as if I was stupid. They completely misrepresented how liquidity works. I don't remember exactly what they said, but it was the biggest load of BS. You know, they thought that I was some kind of moron that wouldn't know better. So after I corrected them, then they finally gave me the $700 back that they owed me. That was the first time that I had a problem with crypto.com, and it was not the last, which is still going on, I might add. Then after that, I don't know all the details, but they did something similar with my son to the tune of about $5,000. They strung him along on the in the support chat for over a year, and then closed his case because he hadn't logged in. He gave up, and so they closed his case after he hadn't been in the app in a few months, and then he couldn't do anything about it. His account was closed. because there was also no money in it. They went and closed his account. So now, boom, no record. Okay. Now, my most recent. Crypto.com has some membership tiers that you can pay monthly for. The Plus tier, I think, is the first one. And that's the one I signed up for. And one of the perks of being in that Plus tier was that there were zero fees, zero trading fees for anything for the first $20,000 you spend every month. Okay? Well, they're also supposed to give cash back when you use your card. Well, for starters, I didn't get any of the cash back for about $5,000 worth of purchases with my card. But that's not the big issue here. The big issue here was that they started charging me fees after the first $10,000. And I spent about $50,000. I sold my house, and that was all of the money that I had. So, well, not all of it, but that was the majority of the money that I put into there was proceeds from the house. I dumped a bunch into Bitcoin, and I was going to play some contracts, make some money. But yeah, they started charging me fees after the first $10,000 worth of trading that I spent in the month. And then when the second month came up, they were still charging me fees. They didn't even reset it back to give me the first 10,000. So upon contacting support, and it's been since middle of December now, they're still researching. Every time I talk to them, we're still looking into it. Yeah, BS. Complete BS. So I had about $6,000 worth of pending deposits, so I canceled them. And now I technically owe them $6,000, but they owe me about $4,000 in fees. So they're not going to get theirs unless I get mine. I have some holdings in my account, but I've got them in staking pools, and they cannot touch it while it's in staking pools. So I will leave it there and hold it hostage. I told these people that. I even sent them a link to a little short that I made describing this whole thing. I didn't go into as much detail in that short, but then I sent that link to them in the chat. And they have had nothing to say. Soon after I submitted that video in the chat, they seemed to give a little bit more of a damn, but nothing has changed. They're trying to wait me out, so I give up, and then they'll just take my money. But Crypto.com owes me thousands. I don't know how much it is, but it's a lot. It was about $50,000 of trades worth of fees. Because I stayed in that window of $20,000 per month. I only put in about 25,000 maybe. So there are some of those fees that were legit. But the Plus tier clearly states zero fees on anything for the first $20,000 you spend every month. And after $10,000, they started charging me. And then when the next month came around, they didn't even reset it. They continued to charge me. And when I bring it up, they tell me, what's the model of your phone? Please try to reset your phone and uninstall the app and reinstall that. No. I told them in the chat, I'm not stupid. It's not an app issue. It's a you issue. Yeah, I've been very, very sarcastic with them. At first, I stayed professional because you want to try and stay professional when you're trying to get somebody to cough up money they owe you. But at a certain point, they pissed me off. So that's when I started threatening them to make a video for all my followers. So I'd really appreciate it if you shared this message with anybody you know that uses Crypto.com. They will rip you off if you ever have any issues. They will string you along, put you in a chat, and not respond for, in the case of my son, an entire year. A year. For a year, they said, we're still researching. Bulls S. So I'm calling you out, Crypto.com. Crypto.com are thieves. They are criminal. They do not care about situations where they're in the wrong. They have no interest in doing the right thing and giving you back the money that they owe you, if they ever technically owe you money. So you better be able to prove it hardcore. And even then, yeah, they've pretty much given me the finger. And I don't know what else to do. I threatened legal action, but I'm sure something is covered in the user agreements. So yeah, I don't know what to do at this point. I will never use Crypto.com again, and I hope you never use Crypto.com. I hope this message reaches everybody who uses Crypto.com, because you, Crypto.com, they know they're wrong. That's why they try and completely BS me every time I talk to them in the chat. All right. That's my rant. We are 17 minutes away from the market open. Let's see what Bloomberg is saying. There goes a nickel. Every time that song plays, I get an alert saying profit sharing. So I have to go in and mute just that audio.
With a birthday cake blog post this morning. I mean, GTC is next week. NVIDIA's GTC is next week, which is their big developer conference. They usually come out with all kinds of products. And there has been some chatter that maybe that will help reignite some of the excitement. But also, NVIDIA is so well telegraphed and has maps out things so sort of transparently. It's hard to see what more, excitement could potentially come as a result of that.
I think it's as simple as there is now a firm disconnect between the stock and the business, in the sense of all you had to do was buy the stock 18 months ago and it went up. And if I look at, and I don't want to pick on NVIDIA here, but when this all kicked off in 2023, the immediate, which again, the stock was has gone up 1,000% since then, give or take. But the immediate bear case is oh, this is a stock that's gone down 60% multiple times in its history. It's been a cyclical business. I think I read Jensen's post this morning as him saying, it's a cyclical business, guys. Don't forget it. This is a long cycle to play out. Now, how he's defining the company.
If you are just now joining,
context of that cycle, I think
back up
maybe tilted
about
a little
3 or 4 minutes.
I
just ranted about Crypto.com. If that's what you're here to hear,
CEO. I don't think he'd have any problem.
Go back about 2 or 3 minutes.
The price of NVIDIA stock going down 50% over the course of the next year, because that's not the thing. He's not managing the stock price, I don't think. I mean, maybe I'm just taking the bait here, but he has seen multiple cycles and he's seen his company execute against their plan within these price cycles or these macro cycles or these industry cycles. And I just don't see him as super worried about managing the stock price, which has had many periods, even within the last year, where it kind of did nothing for a while.
So,
you
think he's acknowledging that it's cyclical? You don't think he's saying that? Well, at the very least, though, he's saying the cycle is very long, if that's his argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like NVIDIA is a little bit, I won't say it's post-cyclical, that's not, but I mean, I think that, can we see the end of this cycle? Is it so long that we can't even see the end of it? I don't know. And is that still a cycle if you can't see the end of it?
You don't have to, this is a good,
now we're getting really.
Well, no, it's there's, people don't, you don't have to see the full cycle to say that something is cyclical. You don't have to make the full argument to acknowledge that there is a piece of it that is endemic, right?
Fair.
It's sort of like when someone says, I want to do this, and you're like, I don't want to do that. There's two schools of thought. Do you necessarily need to provide the alternative, or you just merely need to say that I don't feel like doing that necessarily. So I feel like you don't have to say, I can see where the cycle, how it's going to S-curve or sine wave or whatever through time. It's just simply that, I think that's kind of what this information story about what really happened with the Oracle OpenAI data center is kind of acknowledging, which is that there are going to be
there are a few new people here, so back up a few minutes if you want to see my Crypto.com rant.
A physical limit is really what
sure I can run my mouth about it later.
A materials limit, a permitting limit,
providing more people show up,
availability limit, I need to practice my my things.
I will definitely snip
on
it,
this whole cycle,
make a
and then
video
we're
out of
all
it.
going to be riding this together in some way, shape, or form.
All right. Well, speaking of riding something in one way, shape, or form, skiing. Is that a good segue? We're going to talk about skiing next at Vail Resort.
There you go.
We'll be right back.
Like, I am furious at crypto.com. I am so furious at them. Like, dude, 50 grand moved through my account, and you can't treat your customers better? It's not like I was in there with a couple $100. You know what I mean? I was in there with 5 figures, and they straight up ripped me off. They haven't even said that, oh yeah, I see what you're saying, I'll see what we can do. No, they haven't said a damn thing. They asked me to do a bunch of pointless BS, reset my phone, uninstall the app, reinstall the app, try doing it on a computer. No, no, no. This is a you problem, not a me problem. Yeah, and then of course they had a whole another list of BS, they had hoops to jump through. They were like, send us a screenshot of the transaction in question, right? Okay. I said, there are several hundred, so be prepared for several hundred screenshots coming your way. And they said, okay, go ahead. Didn't think I'd do it. I sent them about 30 screenshots, and they finally said, hey, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, that's enough. Well, you didn't believe I was going to send the screenshots, did you? Bitches. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
Of traveling goods and services.
Again, if you're just now getting here, back up about 5, 6, 7 minutes-ish to hear my rant. Is right when I came back into the room.
Because we don't have autonomous ships. So we need to ensure that we have a safe passage, however that is, regardless of the dislocation. So that's alpha omega. Secondarily, obviously, we need to ensure that then the assets can come all the way into their destination. And do remember, as I mentioned before, it's a cul-de-sac. And all the residents in that cul-de-sac obviously benefits from being able to have the trade flow. So there has to be found a solution for safe passage. There has to be found a solution for security going through. The strait is narrow. You have 2 lanes in and 2 lanes out.
Drop a like button,
we
would
are
you?
waiting for a solution. In the meantime, we are ensuring that all seafarers, all
Would
ships
really help me out.
are being looked after, waiting for what can be done. But there is not a direct replacement.
But you have, dozens of ships, thousands of seafarers that you're managing.
If I get 10
here?
likes total,
When you hear
I'll take my
President
shirt
Trump
off.
say, our Navy will escort you through.
Just kidding. I mean, I will if you really want me
to.
to.
The administration and say, okay, we've got a couple candidates here. Send us the naval ships and escort us through. Or do you say, not right now, because these lives are on my hands?
So we discuss with all authorities, and we advise our clients at a minute's notice.
But it's not. Again, if you're just now joining us, back up to right when I came into the room. If you want to hear my my crypto.com rant and how they are ripping me off, how they ripped my son off, and how they tried to rip me off once before, and I nailed them. But this last time, I'm still fighting with them, and it involves thousands. So back up to right when I came into the room, and listen, everybody should hear this. Anybody who trades crypto, especially if you use crypto.com, stop. You can see why a few minutes back.
Is obviously safe.
And you probably have to know where your ships are too. There's been reports of those clusters. They look like they're forming on the map. We had it up just a moment ago, and it might just be jam signals showing false areas of where these ships actually are. How are you keeping track of your seafarers right now?
So obviously we are in minute-to-minute contact with our seafarers. I must say, as I
want this message to spread far and wide. So please back up and watch from when I came into the room and listen to my crypto.com rant.
IS system is jammed or having a challenge coming into it. So those kind of things are obviously very, very important for all of us. But the point of the matter is that it has to be safe. And then we are, of course, in a very inflationary environment for everybody. So you are having a challenge with insurance, even though it's also a resilient industry. They are trying to find solutions for this. I think all shipping companies want to find solutions to this, to your question about Navy escorts. But right now, it's not there.
Renee, if you were to guess in a matter of days or weeks for you to start getting your ships through, could you give us a forecast?
No, I cannot give you a forecast. But I can tell you that from a supply chain disruption and from the trade flows where this is obviously omni-important for the entire world and for all the residents in that cul-de-sac. We want it to be in near term. Shipping waits for it to be in the near term. I think the shipping industry as a whole is resilient, is innovative, is creative, but that part of it is out of our hands.
Right. Force majeure, so to speak. All right, Renee, great to get your intel. Thank you so much for joining us. Group CEO, V Group, Renee Kofod-Olsen. Coming up, we'll discuss the market outlook amid geopolitical uncertainty with Citi's Stuart Kaiser. And as we see futures swing from gains to losses, this is Open Interest.
6 minutes till market open, baby. Who's got a ticker symbol they want me to check out? Drop it in the chat. And again, if you missed my message, do not send me any super chats. Not on YouTube. Rumble is fine. That setup is fine. Rumble's not trying to rip me off. Or neither is YouTube for that matter. But yeah, if you're on YouTube, do not super chat me. Use that instead. That QR. I'm going to kick Bloomberg back on, maybe.
Everything you need to know before the markets open on Monday.
Introduce Monday, airing this old stuff. See what Fox, Yahoo.
Where consumer spending was going hinged on the ways that millennials, as they got more money and more time and all
If
this
you're just
kind
now
of stuff,
joining me, back up to when I
consume.
just walked
Well,
into the
turns out
room.
a lot of millennials
So
are
you
just
can
spending
catch
with their
that
parents because now
Crypto.com
they've got
rant if
families
that's
and
what you're here
problems.
for.
And guess what they have less of? Time. So even though they want to do all these sorts of things, and the way that
It's only
a
about
millennial family spends
5 to
their
10
time
minutes
and money
back.
is different from their parents in some ways. If you're selling packages for any leisure activity that require
Yeah, it's about 8 or 9 minutes
more
back.
than like 2 or 3 plays, let's say, to get the buyback, there's just not a lot of people who have that amount of discretionary time. They have the income, and they will spend it on all kinds of things. But if the time win back, and now this is not really about Vail and not even about golf, it's just picking on this idea of everything's a subscription in some way, shape, or form, and really to quote unquote get your money's worth, you need to be using it more than a lot of people who are really the target demo for this have the ability to do.
So you're saying you don't like these subscriptions because we don't have the time to take advantage of this stuff, and then you feel forced into it. And it's something that you not really even want to do.
I think everyone accepts that most things now are subscriptions.
Yes.
And now we're in a mature phase where people can be more discerning about which ones they're going to pick up and which ones they're going to drop.
So companies should be.
It's recurring it's recurring right up to the moment that someone says I'm out.
Yeah. Well, I guess more people are saying they're out.
That's it.
All right. That does a reporting brief. Opening bid with Yahoo with Brian Sazi is next. I almost called him Yahoo Sazi.
Yeah.
Guys have given me 6 seconds to give you an elevator pitch about how powerful Pestler PRDG monitoring software is. It's vendor agnostic, OT.
Again, if you're here for the Crypto.com story, I just ran my mouth. It was roughly 10 minutes ago. So if you want to back it up 10 minutes, it didn't take long. Go ahead, back it up and listen to it. Everybody needs to hear it. And if I'd really appreciate you hitting the like button so that more people can see it as well. Everyone needs to be warned.
Bloomberg has learned that there are discussions around a potential all-cash offer for Warner's studio and streaming businesses.
For the past 2 years, we hadn't really seen any deals above $30 billion. And now we're seeing, Warner Brothers, $80 billion, the big railroad deal. And what we're hearing from sources is that next year we're going to see more of the same. It's just going to be the mega deal.
I would expect next year will be an even better year for M&A and IPOs.
That's just kind of what we do at Serena Ventures, is just kind of learn how we can fill in different gaps in different areas that are being missed. And by the way, these gaps tend to be really, really massive.
I know you've been very bullish on the return of M&A. Do you expect more deals, if they are of this size, to have the same sort of structure and contours?
I think we're going to see the return of large transactions, and I think they're going to avail themselves of both private credit options and public options.
There's a lot of merger talk. There's a lot of firepower.
Investors
1 minute
wanted to
till
know
the
at
bell
what
opens,
price
baby.
would this deal be, and now they answered that question at $70 a share.
So congratulations to Bloomberg's deals team for getting it first.
I'm Danny Berger, and this is Bloomberg Deals. Every week, only on Bloomberg Television.
What is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets? We are seeing modest gains across European equity markets.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute political news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Tyler Kendall in Washington, and this is Bloomberg.
Silver on a run. I do believe the bell has sounded.
We are moments away from the start of trading. This is Bloomberg Open Interest. I'm Matt Miller. We're looking at futures that have been swinging back and forth. They're relatively little changed as we head to the open of the trade. S&P futures down 0.1%. NASDAQ futures completely unched here, and the small caps are down.
There's the bell.
Telephone is ringing.
It's about a 20-second
delay.
delay.
The New York Stock Exchange. It's got to be one of the oldest traded issues there. 150 years, you can see, of connecting. I guess that's part of the reason
NVIDIA
that
taking a run.
Their ticker is simply T.
Sure would help my puts I've got,
it's
or
a
my
BTC,
put, my calls. How many puts on NVIDIA?
Opening bell, and I was looking at the 5-year as I tend to do.
Okay, it looks like NVIDIA is making a run for the money. And the futures market is looking all green. Lithium, crude, silver. We're doing all right. Ooh, the methanol. That methanol trade's up 40%. Some of these natural gas and oil futures and silver, some of them, man, you can make some serious money, especially if you use leverage. There we go. That figures. That Algorand that somebody wanted me to pull up earlier. Looks like you got a long signal, bull flag forming. NASDAQ doing well. I'm going to put the 1 minute candles on just because it gives you more precise movement. The 1 minutes aren't, if you look at these trade signals, don't apply them when there's 1 minute candles. Because while these trading signals are good, they are best used when 5 to 15 minute candles. They're more accurate. Let's see a 10 minute candle. See the long entry right here. That's perfect. Another long right here. And then a short right here. You see how much more accurate that is? I put it on 5 minutes. And that's not quite good. A short signal here, and I mean, if you buy market, you're going to pay probably about here. And yeah, that's not very much money you would have made. And then they don't throw a long signal in on here. That's for 5 minutes. But see, the long here cost you this right here. And had you panicked and sold, you would have missed that. So when you're looking at these trading signals, apply them to 10 or 15 minute candles, because look how much more accurate that is. Short signal here and then bang! Short signal here and then bang! Long signal here and then bang! Bang! That's what I'm talking about. Long signal there. Boom. So yeah, whenever you're using, and not just for these trading signals, any trading signals, they are more accurate the farther out you go. 1 minute candles with these trading signals, and I dare say most trading signals, no. Even though this one's pretty good, this one sucks. If you tried to short here, you didn't short very enough. But then, of course, these little symbols here, which I know nobody can read. This is CHOCH. It's change of something. And then the BOS is a breakout. Breakout coming, which happened right there. And they're basing it on the fact that it went up and slowly came down and didn't go any lower. That's why they put that there. I'm pretty sure the change of trend, or the change of what's been going on, and then boom, down a little bit. Same thing over here. Change of something. I can't remember what it is. I'm an idiot. There's a breakout right here, which I think that's breakout, because it certainly happened before. But it's in green. It may imply that it's going to come down. Then again, over here they were green too, and it did come down. But this one doesn't really follow that logic. Yeah, just keep in mind that if you're trading on the fly, if you're a day trader, zoom out to at least 10 or 15 minute candles if you want your signals to be more accurate. I mean, look at that. Perfectly timed. If you had jumped in on a long, well, that's a 1.32% gain. But if you trade with, say, I don't know, 100x leverage, let's say you put $100 in there with 100x leverage. Well, then you're ultimately trading with $100,000 worth of. If you have 100x leverage on anything, your investment is only 1% of that. So that means if the price goes down just 1%, you get liquidated. You must have extra money sitting uninvested that counts as your liquidity pool. That acts as a buffer so you can take more of a loss in the price while you wait for it to go up. So like, let's say you had $100 at 100x leverage. That's $10,000. But if it moves 1%, that means if the price of whatever it is you're invested in moves $100, 1% of your investment, okay, then you get liquidated at 1%. But if you had, say, $1,000 in liquid, not invested, just in the account, then that would act, since it's 10 times your investment, that would be a 10% buffer. So instead of being liquidated, if it falls 1%, you'll get liquidated when it falls 10%. So it guards against those small, those small fluctuations you may have while you're waiting on your long to go up. Keep that in mind. If you use 100x leverage, if the price moves 1%, you will get liquidated, because your investment is only 1% of the notional. Notional is what it weighs. If you have 100x leverage on $1,000, your notional amount is 100,000. It's 100 times whatever your investment is. But being that it's 100 times, that makes your part 1%. So if the price moves down 1%, you get liquidated. Let's say it 1,000 times. That's just in case anybody new popped in halfway through the conversation. What is Bloomberg saying?
And then it's a lot of the energy names. They are falling alongside the price of oil. Exxon down 1.3%. Chevron also down there in the top losers too. Let's look at what the sectors are doing. I'm going to guess
oil's
energy
coming down.
It's going to be near the bottom, and it is the utmost bottom sector. That is down 1.1%.
There's oil.
Everything is down except communications. That's going to be Meta.
Up.
That's adding
Might
to that.
be about to go long,
barely
but I don't know.
changed this morning too. Consumer staples and healthcare again.
15-minute candles being more accurate, just like I said. Look at that long signal.
To start the year, just not a place to hide out at this moment.
All right, interesting look, interesting market reaction to what's going on. Coming up, we'll talk more about how the war is impacting one specific.
This is oil futures, in case you can't read the title at the top. I made $250 yesterday off of a $92 investment. I bought one crude oil future contract, and it ran up, and I profited $250. Well, they kept talking about how there was $150 a barrel was coming, but they were also talking about an international group was talking about releasing 400 to 500 million barrels of oil into the market to stave off this $100 a barrel price that was that we were currently over. And the market reacted to that news by coming back down to right almost exactly $100 a barrel. So these people that were going to talk about it decided not to. So I figured that meant it was going to run back up. But no, lost all that profit, which really hurt because that was all the money in the world that I had. But I pulled my initial $92 out because I'll be damned if I lost my principal. You know what I mean? So it was a wasteful endeavor. And it's a good thing I pulled out when I did, because that was last night. Yep. That was last night, probably right around, it might have been right around in here. Because it was still in the 90s when I sold out. Yeah, it was still above, I think it was 94 or something. So, yeah, I might have sold in the middle of this candle. Yeah. Oh well. That's why you got to be careful. Don't get greedy. Should have took the profit and ran, but no. I was hoping for more. Because I was using 10x leverage, which made my $100, well, my $900, my $90 made it $900. So every dollar this went up, I'd make $10. So if it went up $50, I would have made $500. And I was waiting for that. Because, God, I could use the money right now. I'm technically homeless. And I got a cat. I'm lucky enough to be in a wonderful person's house that's letting me use her internet, which I blew the bandwidth out of, by the way. I'm a dick. I'm sure I'm looking like a big old mooch right now. But waiting on my tax return. Hey, has anybody had any lags in getting their tax refund? Is it just me? Because like I've been waiting like 6 weeks after TurboTax and the IRS said 3. Last week of February, first week of March. That's what they told me. That's what it still says. They accepted my return, but nothing has changed. And it's been 6 weeks. And I need that money desperately. It ain't much, but I need that bit desperately so I can get out of this where I'm at, get my own place. NASDAQ's doing pretty good. Nvidia still playing around with that. Drop a ticker symbol in the chat. I'll be glad to pull up whatever you want. Crypto heat map is looking a little red for the 1 hour and the 4 hour. Still okay on the 24. Dollar is looking a little... We really don't want that dollar to go over the $100 mark, guys. That will trigger a lot of inflationary things. In fact, I've got a message that my cousin sent me. I was going to write out a transcript of it and share this information with you, but you know what? It might just be easier to just play the message on the camera. What you think?
Bro, nothing that I say is my original idea.
There it is.
Yeah, I'm projecting, but treasury auctions have been failing for a while. We've been buying it. Commercial mortgage-backed securities is another big catalyst. Small, medium-sized banks being gobbled up by the majors, so the Fed doesn't have to manage as many. Why do you need to manage as many when you have the Fed Now program, central bank digital currency? You've got a network of built-in banks via the post office. And those small, medium-sized banks hold that commercial mortgage-backed security debt almost exclusively. So why is that? So anyway, there's all kind of shit, but, we're spending more on servicing our debt than we are on any other expenditure. And I don't think that's changing anytime soon. I think we're going to get some printing going on here, bro. I mean, I've been wondering what the excuse was going to be. Commercial mortgage-backed securities, World War III, some other kind of economic bullshit, but they've been really patient, and I think we're here. I really feel like we're going to see some shit with the Fed and these interest rates before June. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, it's hard to know what's going on. I'm just looking for catalysts.
Yeah. What do you think? I thought it was very interesting. That's my cousin. I love him to death. Him and I have been going back and forth with each other. We bounce ideas off of each other all the time. We make such a great team. Almost every time, everything he leaves out or forgets, I can account for. And then everything, when I have an idea, he fills in the blanks. Well, I mean, we are such a good team. We should be millionaires by now. But, yeah, I would really love to hear y'all's opinions on the statements that he made. So far, the dollar is looking good. It's coming back up, baby. All of SpaceX's main supply chain is looking good. Yeah, don't let these ratings sell you, or don't let them fool you. Nvidia's a strong sell, huh? No. They've got a price point of $280 over the next year. It might be a minute. And then, of course, Best Steel, it's a South Korean company. You'd have to get into their market and use the South Korean won. So you might be able to make a little extra on that exchange rate too. Worth looking into. Then, of course, there's this company, Astronics. I love that name. I love Astronics. Do you like Astronics as well? Astronics is like such a great company. This trend's looking like they're just kind of blobbing their way down, huh? Let's check out the 1 day candles. Every candle is 1 day. When you zoom out, it's looking like a pretty good buy. And ahead of the SpaceX IPO, which we still don't know when that's going to happen, but they've been talking about it being probably in June. To which when they open, they are going to be the largest IPO open in the history of the world. So you can bet that's going to shake things up. Because, if you agree with me or not, doesn't matter. But he's literally changing the face of all of our space travel and anything we do in orbit. NASA is getting the most out of what he's doing because he's been working very closely with NASA. In fact, that's where the majority of the government subsidies that Elon Musk gets for SpaceX goes to. It goes to helping NASA, which is a good thing. I don't know about you, but I'd love to get the hell off of this dumbass planet. There's got an error on the stream. Is everybody watching okay? I don't see any problems. What you talking about? Keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less, huh? Alright, well let me try and adjust that, and I will put on Bloomberg for a minute.
Do you see that as a possibility?
Like, it really depends, Matt, on how long this lasts. If this is a short-term spike, then I don't think you're going to see any kind of change in CapEx. It is not as easy to work with the OEMs, especially for aircraft that's being delivered this year and maybe even to next year. But the longer dated aircraft can get pushed out. What happens immediately is you start parking the aircraft that you have. You start flying them less, and you take seats out of the market, and that pushes kind of pressure on the fares immediately. So that's what I think what you see first. First, you start to see kind of the maintenance providers getting hit. And then like longer term, if this fuel price persists, then you will see kind of order books getting narrowed.
Hey, Savi, real quickly here, because we're almost out of time. The DHS and the partial government shutdown has now entered its 4th week. TSA agents are now starting to miss their full paycheck. Is that having any impact on these airlines with these long lines at TSA with demand?
So far, we haven't seen an impact on bookings, but it is definitely a concern. I mean, this is a kind of bipartisan political failure that we're seeing here, and hopefully this gets resolved. But it's happening at a time that this is peak spring break period, and so hopefully this will get resolved soon. Right now, we're not seeing it as an impact on demand, but clearly the longer this goes, it is a big concern.
Savi, thanks so much for joining us this morning. That's Raymond James Airlines Managing Director Savi Synth. Coming up, Oracle set to report results after the closing bell. Cloud acceleration in focus, and we'll take a look
see
at
if
that.
This
just
fixes
ahead.
the quality
This is Bloomberg Open Interest
of my stream. Comment. Tell me what it does. Hopefully I didn't just get disconnected.
Bringing you the world's business and financial news
I do apologize
and wherever it happens. I'm Michael McKee at Mount Everest, and this is Bloomberg.
We're at the epicenter of a global realignment on a scale not seen for decades. At the intersection between markets, economics, and geopolitics, a forum for sophisticated conversation. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
The trading day is about to start.
And you're already looking for that edge.
The trading day already started.
Everything you need to know as markets open.
It really bothers me when they're behind. See what Yahoo's saying.
Substantial influence on the leadership of that part of the world. So I think President Trump's focus on bringing that entire region together, pushing these radical Islamists out, not only is the right move, I think it's the right move for the region, and
absolutely,
by and large, they're going to be very supportive of that. And I think you'll see potentially a era in front of us of relative peace in that part of the world, and relative peace brings economic stability and economic growth.
Yes, but does it bring more economic stability more than war does? Because, I hate to tell you. Anybody know what the U.S. dollar is backed by? It's not backed by gold anymore. What's it backed by now? Any guesses? It's backed by war. It is not backed by workers. It is straight up backed by war. That's why the dollar does so well during wartime. Because of the petrodollar. Closing the Strait of Hormuz just cut off 20% of the world's oil supply. And when you translate a 20% drawback of the supply, you can 10x that and apply that to the cost. Makes the cost go up. That can make the cost double. Just 20%. It also cut off the supply of cheap oil to China. Then where do they get the oil that they need? America, baby. Trump just went over there and had a very good conversation with Xi Jinping. They have to buy from us because they have to fuel their economy. They have to have it in their economy. And the Strait of Hormuz I think it's still closed. So you cut off China's oil supply. They have to buy from us. That makes the petrodollar worth a hell of a lot more, which helps out the dollar because it's the same thing. Our dollar is backed by war. Believe it. Military-industrial complex runs the country. Well, they pretty much run the world. We spend 5 times as much on our military as... Wait a minute. No, we spend more than double in our military than the next 5 countries combined. I think that's the number. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Hey, listen, my word's not the word of God. If I ever say something that you disagree with, please tell me. I promise to maintain respect. Everybody's opinion is valid. I will call you out if you are straight up wrong, but I am always open to a civil discussion about anything. Right. Seeing still mostly red. Red and flat. Broadcom doing well. GE doing well. AMD. Costco. I think that's Costco. Microsoft and Meta, Oracle, Palantir, Adobe, everybody's sucking it. Netflix and IBM. Remember last week everybody was talking about Netflix. Let me check out old Netflix. Pretty sure Monday morning or Friday too, they were talking up Netflix. And then look at this BS. Don't get your stock tips from the news, guys. Do your own homework. Find a company that you believe in, that you like. Because there's no better motivation than personal interest. If you eat at a particular restaurant every day and you can't get enough, if you see that they're loaded with customers, find their stock ticker symbol if they got one. Invest in what you know. you can never lose when you invest in what you know. Because even if it takes a little hit, you're fine. You believe in that company, you'll find reasons to invest in them. Not financial advice, but like I love Taco Bell. I know it's garbage food. I know it's horrible for you, but I don't care. They are owned by a company whose stock ticker symbol is Yum. Such a great brand name. Yum. This is Yum. They own Taco Bell. They own a lot. I'm trying to find their fundamentals. I'm not fully versed on TradingView. It's such a big program. I love it. It's so awesome. There we go. That is a fundamental graph of Yum. And that's over the last, 5 years? I do believe that is a buy. That's looking great. Yeah, see, I would totally invest in this company because I like them. I like what they do. That's what you should do, is you should find a company that you like, that you enjoy their products, or you see a lot of people going there. You see them getting a lot of business when you're out and about in the world. Not all of your investment ideas need to come from this here computer screen you're staring at all the time. You got to get out there in the world and find a company that you like. Look at that. Kind of protracted crap is this? Oh yeah, it's from 97. Yeah, I got 1 year chart, or 1 year candles. Steady growing up. We'll back off of it a little bit there. That's kind of ridiculous. Let's go with day candles. Now this is from January-ish. Yeah, about January. Yeah, first week of January. And now it's on its way up. And you can definitely draw a line that goes all the way down here. That's the trend. It fell a little below that trend. Each candle's a day, mind you. It's currently in a short. I'm going to go to the hour. And this looks like the last 24 hour. Is that? No, sorry, I'm a dumbass. This is 1 hour candles. Apparently not. Yeah. Okay, that's just market trading hours. Duh, I'm an idiot. I was looking for 24 candles of a day. Anyway. Over the long term, I do believe this is a good buy. Taco Bell did get a new CEO, and he's been putting chicken in everything. Go figure. And that's fine. Taco Bell's great. I love pizza and Taco Bell. But I want to find some fundamentals. There we go. It's showing as a sell. But you know what? If you believe in a company, you can take or leave those discussions, right? Go out for a month. It's a buy. So this is a long-term buy. Look at all these moving averages. All of them a buy. It's because in the long run, you are likely to do well. Be warned, this info isn't a recommendation for what you should personally do, so please don't take the data as investment advice. As with any trade, always look first, then leap. Yeah, good advice. But yeah, I would definitely say in the long run, this is a great investment. But it's not because they're doing anything insane. It's not because I expect to get rich off of it. It's because I believe in this company, which is what most people should do before doing any investment of any kind. You don't underestimate the value of personal interest. You know, when you really love a company, guess what? You're going to be more inspired. You're going to be more apt to dig as deep as you need to dig to learn all you can. And that's the name of the game, baby. You can't go in blind. You can't just take a stock pick from somebody that says, hey, invest in this and throw money at it. Because when it starts moving around, you won't know when to sell. Plus, you know, I see far too many people who are unwilling to do the homework. And come on. You're not going to ever make money. You're not ever going to make any money worthwhile by doing that. The only way that'd pay off is if you invested in ETFs and let them sit and didn't do anything, you know. And that's great investing. That's about the best you could do. Throw it into a Roth IRA and let it sit for 10 or 15, 20 years. Invest in some of the Vanguard ETFs. That's a great way to make money to retire on. If you have the discipline to leave it alone. But in those cases, especially if you don't really know what's going on in the market, you probably should never even look at it. Just dump money into it blindly and leave it there for 10 or 20 years. Excellent, excellent, excellent advice. You won't hear anybody telling you that that's a bad idea. Now, can you make more trading derivatives, things like options and derivatives on like futures and Bitcoin and whatnot? Oh, yeah. You can make a ton of money. You can also lose a ton of money. Happened to me. I lost about $50,000 in the last 3 months. Sold my house and basically lost it all. That's why I'm technically homeless, living in a friend of mine's room that was nice enough to give me a bed. I've been here for going on 5 weeks now. I feel like I'm wearing out my welcome. So I'm just waiting on my tax return to come, and then I am out of here. Got a friend of mine. We're going to get into a place. Oh, but yeah. I just took my little $93 out of Coinbase and threw it into an account because I got to go spend that money. And that is all I've got until that tax money comes, and it doesn't look like it's going to come this week. So I am very highly stressed. Before we go, I just wanted to let you guys know that I really appreciate your patronage. I really appreciate you coming and watching. I love you all to death. This channel has been growing. Slowly but surely, it has been growing. On YouTube as well as Rumble. I'm pretty sure I only have one person watching right now. But at any rate, I do love you guys. Yeah, yesterday after I lost everything that I made on those oil futures, I spent a good amount of time shaking my fist at the sky. You know, because I wouldn't have, I almost tripled my money before I lost it, but I almost tripled my money. Now, that can't happen when I throw thousands at something. That only happens when I throw minuscule amounts of money at it. But at the end of the day, I guess I'm glad I didn't throw 10 grand at it like I have it. But if I had thrown 10 grand into that, I would have made $25,000. That's money. But then I would have turned around and lost that extra $15,000. But I'd still have 10 grand, so, you know, it would have been a fun play. That's the bottom line. It would have been fun because I still have that cushion. I wouldn't really mind too much. It sucks to, have that dangle in front of you. It was my own fault for not selling, but you get what I'm saying. I was using my last bit of $100. And these things don't ever happen when I throw big money at something. I throw big money at something, I lose it. That's, you know what I mean? That's like when you buy a stock, as soon as you buy it, it's going down. That's how it always goes, right? Anyway. I thank you, one guy on Rumble watching. It is only 10 o'clock. All right, well, let's go and see what other people are talking about.
Contrast to Europe, right? Europe is much more conservative. There is a question on consumer protection. So where does it start? Where does addiction start? Where do you need to really protect consumers?
Happening better than it happens before stablecoins get too big.
And there is
talking
about
Bitcoin and they are exposing us to exactly the same kinds of risks that repo in 2008. So it's still it could be worse, and in some ways better to get, if we're going to have a crisis, better to have it now than 2 years from now when things might be really out of control, but it's still worrying.
Paul, I also, while I have you, I want to get your take, since we were talking about the job market, about how you're thinking about AI and jobs, because there has been a lot of digital ink spilled, I guess, and research and whatnot on the idea that right now AI is not necessarily taking jobs, at least not in huge measure. I saw one Harvard Business School study, for example, that said in repetitive task jobs, listings have gone down, but in more critical thinking jobs, listings have gone up. I mean, there's a million different ways to slice this. So how are you slicing it when you're thinking about it?
I mean, my empirical fact is that whatever you want to think about the economic impact of AI, you can find an expert to confirm what you want to hear. It is so hard to figure out. This is very new. And part of the problem is it's very hard to distinguish between whatever effects AI is having and the fact that we have this kind of frozen job market for other reasons. The uncertainty about tariffs and all of that, and slow growth or stagnation in employment. We don't have a lot of spiking unemployment, but we do have a situation where clearly jobs are hard to find if you're out of work or newly entered into the work market. And how do you distinguish between that and the effects of AI? Not that easy to pull out. Just very impressionistically, this is starting to look like there are a range of tasks for which AI is kind of actually not. The ChatGPT have conversations with your new best friend, but more the sort of Claude doing coding on the fly, that is significant enough that if we aren't seeing it in the data yet, we will be seeing it soon. And it doesn't mean necessarily massive job losses. I still think that's an unlikely story, but significant displacement, uncertainty, possibly productivity growth. Those numbers also are showing what looks like the beginning of movement, but this is starting to look like it's at least significant enough that you should be worried. hey, there are YouTube accounts that pretend to be me with AI-generated versions of me keep popping up. So I guess I'm replaceable. So there we are.
I don't know. I think you probably still have more followers, hopefully, than the fake YouTube accounts. I mean, but Paul, I guess as somebody who has studied past cycles, obviously we've had past examples of technological change that have caused displacement. How long do those processes usually take, until sort of we get not just the displacement, but also the replacement, right? And I don't mean replacement, I mean like replacement, like people figuring out other things to do that are created by this new technology.
We have never, I have not, as far as I know, there is no documented example of a new technology actually causing mass unemployment. It causes a lot of people with some jobs to lose them, but it doesn't, the alternative employment has come along one way or another, pretty much in tandem with the displacement. Possibly, if we go back to the 1820s, that might not be true, but we don't really have data for that. And it's the I'd say that actually, historically, these things have actually had a fairly long. That the cycles are kind of long. I mean, if you actually ask how long did it take for the whole internet boom bubble bust to work its way through the economy, it was something like a dozen years. It wasn't something where it was all adopted instantly. It wasn't someplace where the full benefits took a long time to figure out what to do with the internet and even generally IT. And then the aftermath lasted a long time too. I mean, in some ways, we were not over the dot-com bust when the financial crisis came along. So I think maybe this is much faster. Maybe we're on AI time and things just move at the clock just ticks faster. But I think it's probably a mistake.
If you are just now joining us, I did a rant on why you should not use crypto.com. I made that rant at about 9:05. So if you back up about an hour and 10 minutes, you can catch that rant. Please share this information with anybody you know that trades crypto on crypto.com. They will rip you off if they have half a chance. In fact, shit, I got 4 people watching. So listen, I'll just tell the story again. I'd say last year I was playing with their little contracts, their derivatives contracts. And they had a system crash. They had a system failure. Their system crashed and went down, which prevented me from selling out of my long, and ended up costing me about $700 because I couldn't sell because of their screw up, which they admitted to initially. Well, I get into the chat and they start telling me all kinds of BS. Well, there was no liquidity. No. There's plenty of liquidity. Your system went down. That is a you problem. So, it took about a month of bitching back and forth with these fools while they tried to keep my money. Finally, I sent them the screenshots. Told them, listen, I'm not stupid. I know how liquidity works. You just lied to me, because they did. They tried to tell me that liquidity meant something it didn't. I forget exactly what they said. It's been over a year. So they coughed up my $700, rightfully so. Skip ahead. My son was invested. And I don't know the full details of everything, but they strung him along in the support chat for over a year because they owed him money. They never did try to resolve it. They ended up closing his account, thereby closing out that chat, and they got away with it. Fast forward a little more to me, and I was stupid enough to go back to using crypto.com after they tried to stick me and failed. Well, I sold my house. I put about $50,000 into my crypto account. And I signed up for their Plus service. And with the Plus service, you get 0 trading fees of any kind across the board. 0 trading fees for the first $20,000 you spend every month. Okay. Well, they started charging me fees after the first 10,000. And then when the month reset, they were still charging me. So they charged me fees on about $40,000 worth of trades. That translates to a couple $1,000s that they owe me. So what I did was, there were still about $6,000 worth of deposits pending, which I canceled and stuck them out of that because you owe me money. What are they doing? They're in the chat now telling me, reset your phone, uninstall the app. What's the model number of your phone? Send screenshots of the transactions in question. Okay. I sent them about 30 screenshots. Then they were like, whoa, we don't need any more. Okay, you asked for it. And now it's been 3 months. And anytime I go back to the support chat and talk to them about it, we're still researching. Yeah, right. BS. Lies. They know they owe me the money, and they're trying to wait it out and see if I give a damn. I even threatened them with legal shit, but I doubt I can do anything because I'm sure they got something covered in their user agreements. So, that being said, boycott crypto.com. I'm telling you, they do this shit all the time. You got to be very careful. Don't go into any of these trades not knowing what you're doing because they will take advantage of your lack of knowledge. Definitely. So, that's it. They owe me several $1,000s. I've got money. Oh, what you can do also is you can lock up whatever money you've got into staking pools, and they can't touch that money until you put it in your crypto wallet. So right now, I've got like what's worth about $3,000 worth of crypto. But if I release all that, they're going to put that into the negative 6,000 that I owe them for stopping those transfers a while back. Thing is when I bought those when Bitcoin was in the high 90s. So they're down. So losing that would count as a lot more. So I'm leaving that shit in the staking pools for about a year or two. I can't touch it. I locked it up already. It's completely unavailable. To prevent them from taking it at such a loss to cover that $5,000. And, you know, those fees, man. If they gave me those fees back, it would throw a couple grand into my account. But are they going to do it? Hell no. Don't use crypto.com. They rob you. They are thieves, and they'll string you along forever in the chat, making you do stupid things on your phone as if it's a you problem and not a them problem. They will take advantage of your lack of knowledge and BS you into the ground. It's almost like a process that they have, because every single time I've ever had an issue with them, it's like they got a checklist of BS that they make you run through in the hopes that you'll give up and in the hopes that they'll exhaust you. Yeah. Boycott crypto.com. Crypto.com. Tried to rip me off once and failed. They ripped my son off for thousands of dollars, and they've ripped me off for thousands of dollars. Do not use crypto.com. Even if you have a big account like I once had, they don't care. They don't care about their customers at all. Don't use crypto.com. I can't say it enough. Share the living hell out of this video. I'm going to make a video out of that whole spiel. So maybe come back in a couple hours and it'll be up, because I'm going to be sharing the hell out of that. I told crypto.com in the chat that I was going to make a video and tell my audience, which today it looks like I've had a couple hundred people total. I'm hoping every last one of you get to see it. I am going to make one post to share what we got going on here, guys. I appreciate you watching. I really, really do. I'm waiting on I'm waiting on YouTube. Oh, actually, more waiting on Rumble. Anyway. All right, guys. I love you. Thanks for coming. I will see you guys tomorrow.